Chapter 164. Jiang Xiu raised his head and stared coldly at the golden giant. His eyes were bright, and the corner of his mouth raised into a smile. It was as if he hadn't heard anything and had no intention of kneeling. Everyone was anxious and looked at Jiang Xiu with complicated expressions. Everyone present obviously hoped that Jiang Xiu would hurry and kneel. The one standing in front of him was a god. If he didn't kneel, he would definitely anger the god and be killed. It would be fine if he was killed, and no one would feel sorry for him. However, they were afraid that the god would see them as a group. Killing Jiang Xiu wouldn't be enough. The god would vent his anger on them and kill them all. Hurry and kneel, Mr. Jiang. It'll be too late if you don't kneel now. Shen Duan had been unhappy with Jiang Xiu for a long time. He hated Jiang Xiu's attitude. He was arrogant and didn't listen to anyone at all. But if you die, you deserve it. Don't drag me down with you. Does he want to fight the god? The elder of the Jin family said. He's asking for it. Even brother Mu Sun was defeated, let alone him. The gap between a demigod and a god is a gap that can't be crossed. He'll only get us killed. This group of people didn't care what Jiang Xiu thought. If he dragged them down, they wouldn't agree. A brainless brute doesn't know fear. How can he challenge a god? He'll only anger the god and end up disappearing. The elder of the Jin family said. I'm afraid it's too late to kneel now. The golden giant was already leaning towards Jiang Xiu, as if he was about to punish him. But unexpectedly he spoke. Human, why don't you kneel? The golden giant was hundreds of meters tall, and his voice was extremely loud. When it came, it felt like it came from the ancient sky. It was shocking. He spoke. Oh my god. This god wasn't emotionless, but he actually understood the language of mortals. It was too shocking. Jiang Xiu slowly raised his head and looked at him indifferently. You don't deserve it. What? The golden giant didn't say anything, but the people present were about to explode. He was a god, and you're just a mortal. Why can't you accept kneeling to a god? To be able to accept your worship and not kill you is already a great favor from the god. Who do you think you are? You don't know what you're talking about. At this moment, these people really wanted the golden giant to kill Jiang Xiu in a fit of rage. He thought too highly of himself. You have to pay the price for your arrogance. The old ancestor of the Jin family said fiercely. You really don't know who you are? He dared to be so arrogant in front of a god. Many people thought that he had gone mad from fear. How dare you? As expected, the giant golden god was enraged. You're just a mere mortal. Why can't I accept it? I think you must be tired of living. Jiang Xiu said. Then I'll let you know why you can't accept it. With that, Jiang Xiu walked towards the giant golden god. Mr. Jiang, where are you going? Xie Ting was stunned for a moment before asking in surprise. To slay a god. Jiang Xiu answered calmly as he walked. He's crazy. Isn't he just letting others pick him up for free? The members of the Jin family, the bandits, and the members of the exploration team all looked at Jiang Xiu as if they were looking at an idiot. How could a human resist such a god? Even bullets would fall when they got close. How could you do anything to a god, let alone slay one? How could you be so arrogant? It was ridiculous. You're courting death. Boom. The giant golden god threw a punch at Jiang Xiu. His fist was so big that it was dozens of times taller than Jiang Xiu. In front of the giant fist, Jiang Xiu was like a dwarf. His strength was so fierce that it could even smash a mountain. The moment he punched out, even the air was compressed and distorted, breaking inch by inch. Its power was like a white wind blowing past. Jiang Xiu, however, was calm and composed. He didn't dodge or move. Masterly, do you think Mr. Jiang is a match for a god? Xie Ting was very nervous. She knew Jiang Xiu's ability. He could kill people with a raise of his hand. His medical skills were also very good. He was a demigod. Li Chengji said, not likely. Mr. Jiang was very famous. Whether it was martial arts or magic, it was said that he was a demigod. But the golden giant in front of them was beyond their imagination. Mu Sun of the Jin family was on the demigod list, but he couldn't even take one hit. He was beaten until he vomited blood, and knelt on the ground to beg for mercy. It was inconceivable that such a deity existed in this world. Is it a golden protoss? Jiang Xiu raised his head and looked over. His divine body was faintly emitting a bronze color. The Golden God clan's entire body looked like it was made of gold. Their divine bodies were as hard as gold, and their strength was boundless. Furthermore, the brighter the color of the Golden God clan's body, the stronger they were. He had seen the Golden God clan's experts before. The one in front of them was far from it. Even the bronze color hadn't faded. It was only the first form. After the bronze faded, it would be silver. After the silver faded, one would be a true golden protoss. He slowly raised his right hand. The gray pattern on it lit up. Not only that, it seemed to appear and gather in the void. At this moment, the true face of spiritual cultivation was completely revealed. Boom. His long hair flew up. His face changed. His pupils turned pitch black, and the wind and sand around him surged. What? At this moment, Jiang Xiu was like a god. He was so handsome that the girl's eyes almost fell out. He was so handsome that no one could have friends. However, they saw Jiang Xiu slowly raise his hand, and the huge fist was actually stopped in its original position. The next scene was unforgettable for everyone present. Grabbing the Golden Titan, Jiang Xiu swung it with one hand. Oh my god, the Golden Titan was hundreds of meters tall. It was unknown how heavy it was, but he swung it like a fire stick. This scene lit candles on everyone's faces. Enlighten the world. There were no words that could describe the shock of witnessing this scene. The Golden Giant, which was hundreds of meters tall, was being swung around like an invincible wind-fire wheel. They could only curse out loud. At this moment, the Golden Titan seemed to be weightless. Whoosh! The Golden Titan was thrown out by Jiang Xiu. Ayo! The Golden Titan let out a heart-wrenching roar. If one were to put themselves in Jiang Xiu's shoes, his heart would also break down. Anyone who was thrown out would also break down. Boom! The Golden Titan that was just thrown out suddenly fell from the sky at a terrifying speed. It defied the laws of physics and smashed into the desert. Everyone was very confused about what was going on. The Golden Titan should have been thrown in a parabola. What's going on? All the doubts turned into shock and were stuck in their throats. Jiang Xiu, who was still on the ground a second ago, was now above the Golden Titan. He stepped on the Golden Titan's body. The Golden Titan was stomped down from the sky. Is he still a human? Mu Sen was dumbfounded and stood there in a daze. He almost wanted to roar. Mr. Jiang, this is Mr. Jiang from Jiangnan. Do you see him? Seeing this scene, Li Qingji was very excited. Above the gods. Old professor, do you see it? Do you see it? At this time, Professor Su was completely dumbfounded. He actually saw a scene that was like a myth in front of him. What was more ironic was that this person was his student. What was above the gods? Of course, it was also a god. He's a god? The eyes of those who had offended Jiang Xiu before, as well as the surviving bandits, bulged. The disdain, contempt, doubt, regret, and annoyance from before all turned into shock. However, there were some people who, after feeling shocked, actually felt a surge of anger rush to their hearts. If he's so powerful, why didn't he say so earlier? Boom. Dividing metal into boundaries. Jiang Xiu's kick was so powerful that it showed a heaven-defying power. The divine body, which could not even be hit by bullets, was forcibly stomped by him and burst open. With an incomparably terrifying momentum, the Golden Titan sank down. After the Golden Titan sank into the body of the Golden Titan, there was the sound of mountain rocks cracking. The Golden Titan was forcibly penetrated by him. He went straight to the center of the Golden Titan's heart. After chanting and pasting a talisman on the position of the heart, he rushed out of the Golden Titan's body with a bang, bringing with him a few pieces of broken gold. The Golden Titan clutched its chest in pain. Its indifferent eyes showed a look of horror. Kneel or die. Chapter 165. Under the shocked gazes of everyone, Jiang Xiu stood with his hands behind his back. His eyes were cold and his hair fluttered in the wind. At this moment, his strength caused the hearts of everyone present to suffer a strong impact. Behind him, the Golden Giant, who was hundreds of meters tall, let out a painful roar. He clutched his chest hard. Not only had his heart been pierced by Jiang Xiu, but Jiang Xiu had also planted a talisman seed in it. Once he cast a spell, the Golden Giant's fate would be unimaginable. In terms of realm, the Golden Giant was a god while Jiang Xiu was a demigod. If it were anyone else, they would have no chance of winning. However, Jiang Xiu was the sect master of Tianqing school. He had lost more than 3,000 years of cultivation, but he knew too many spells. Enlighten the mountains and rivers could dispel the Golden Giant's weight. Divide metal and transform could break the Golden Giant's physical defense. These two techniques were both rare techniques. In fact, only those who had reached the level of Divine King could possibly comprehend their profound mysteries. Yet he was able to use them so casually. It felt like using a max-level skill in a level 1 novice village. It felt like he was using cheats. If he wasn't still a demigod, he wouldn't need to use his divine power to cast these two spells. Some spells couldn't be cast by Protoss. Some spells could be cast by gods but not by immortals. And some spells could be cast by immortals. These two spells could be cast by immortals. Boom boom. The Golden Giant couldn't bear the pain in his heart and knelt down. The giant knelt down. His body was huge and his weight was shocking. The ground shook as if it was about to collapse. The talisman was stuck in his heart, constantly emitting a white light. He still didn't know what kind of talisman it was, but it made him feel incomparably terrified. Once the power contained in the talisman really erupted, it might completely destroy him. Please spare my life, exalted God. The Golden Giant actually knelt down and begged for mercy. This was unbelievable. Mu Sen concluded that Jiang Xiu was not only a demigod, but also a god. He could not believe that there was such a person in the world today. The incredible divine powers he saw just now were rare in the entire Hua nation. He had never seen anyone more powerful than Jiang Xiu. Looking at Jiang Xiu, everyone present could no longer remain calm. Mr. Jiang? Is this Mr. Jiang from Jiangnan? The bandits finally realized how strong Jiang Xiu was. He was not someone that a few machine guns could deal with. Sang Bao felt a chill run down his spine. He actually wanted to snatch his water. Jiang Xiu stood there with an indifferent expression, but the fear in everyone's hearts did not dissipate. Instead, it grew stronger. He was so terrifying. Suddenly, an angry voice rang out. Jiang Xiu, if you're so powerful, why didn't you make a move earlier? Qiu Yinru's beautiful eyes were filled with anger. Why didn't you help us when we were attacked by the bandits? So many people died for nothing. These lives are all your responsibility. Qiu Yinru's anger erupted like a volcano. She felt that Jiang Xiu had gone too far. He could have stopped the bandits, but he did nothing. Hee, this female student. Does Mr. Jiang have the obligation to save you? What right do you have to criticize him? Li Chengji was not trying to suck up to Jiang Xiu. In this world, you can be a righteous person, but don't use your morals to blackmail others. Moreover, Li Qingji had seen how the bandits had isolated Jiang Xiu along the way. Jiang Xiu's eyes swept over, bringing with them a cold glint. So he raised his hand, and that elder from the Jin clan who was smoking a pipe did not even have the slightest chance to react. His whole body had already been cut into two by Jiang Xiu's qi. His head separated from his body. Fresh blood splattered all over Qiu Yinru's face. Gasp! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. This skill Qiu Yinru's body trembled. The hot blood on her face made her feel like a bucket of ice water had been poured from the sky. She froze on the spot. Her breathing was rapid, and her eyes were about to pop out. If Jiang Xiu had aimed at him just now, he would have ended up like this old man from the Jin clan, with his head separated from his body. The hot blood and the cold corpse made Qiu Yinru realize from the bottom of her heart what kind of person Jiang Xiu was. Her legs turned to jelly and she couldn't stand anymore. She fell to the ground. I didn't kill you today because we were classmates. Otherwise you would have ended up like this person. Qiu Yinru nodded in horror. The Jin family members were depressed. If you want to teach someone a lesson, do you have to kill someone from the Jin family? Moreover, the one who was killed was one of the elders of the Jin family. This was an unexpected disaster. They glared angrily at Jiang Xiu as if they wanted to fight him to the death. Mu Sen's face was ashen. Mr. Jiang, what do you mean by this? Why did you kill an elder of the Jin family for no reason? You've gone too far. Innocent. Jiang Xiu's eyes swept over coldly. Your Jin clan sent out so many elites to chase me all the way to the heart of the desert. Don't tell me that you just want to meet me. Mu Sun. Their original intention was to come to the desert to kill Jiang Xiu and avenge Jin Shi. But who would have thought that Jiang Xiu was so powerful? For a moment, they didn't know whether to take revenge or not. They couldn't advance or retreat. Jiang Xiu said, "Now do you still think he's innocent? Not only him, you dared to bring people into the desert to kill me. You should have been mentally prepared. You should have heard that I, Jiang Luoxia, have always been ruthless." The Jin family's faces all changed. Mu Sen's face was gloomy. Jiang Luoxia, you may be able to defeat the Golden Giant, but you may not be able to defeat me. Do you really want to fight me to the death? As he spoke, his spirit slowly changed. His entire face withered and made a cracking sound. His face soon became like a dead tree. His neck, body, and arms all seemed to have turned into wood. Everyone's vital blood vessels, even their hearts and lungs, seemed to have disappeared. His entire body emitted a faint green glow. Semi-god would type evolved body. Jiang Xiu smiled. This person was much more powerful than Wang Jianji of the Wang family. When he completely turned into wood, he would become the green wood Protoss and a true god. He wasn't too far away. He had already walked the last few hundred meters of the 100,000-mile-long journey. You're knowledgeable. Mu Sen's face became very stiff. Even his voice changed. It was unclear and sounded a little like the boundless divine language. Now, do you still want to fight to the death with my Jin family? His tone was full of confidence. Jiang Xiu said, "You're really stupid. The one who will die can only be you." Mu Sun took a deep breath and said, "Then let's give it a try." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged toward Jiang Xiu. He leaped into the air and punched out. His wood body was comparable to ironwood. Jiang Xiu didn't retreat. Instead, he advanced. His speed was much faster than Mu Sen's. At the same time, he waved his hand and a wave of energy whistled out. Mu Sen actually took this attack head-on. At the same time, his fist was already in front of Jiang Xiu. His body was attacked by the wave of energy. His chest exploded, revealing his withered wood-like body. However, his vitals weren't injured. It could even be said that it was only a flesh wound. Too hard, too hard. Jiang Xiu praised from the bottom of his heart. What was the hardest material on the immortal martial continent? It was actually wood. There were many divine trees that were harder than stone and metal. Among the divine objects that were hard to resist, 3 of them were wood. Some wood-type bodies were known for their hardness to counter all kinds of sword chi and blades. And Jiang Xiu not being able to break through his defense was also within his expectations. He purely wanted to try and test his own divine power at the same time. After all, he wasn't a god now. Moreover, he didn't cultivate the sword. He only had energy, so the power was naturally much weaker. Haha, you forgot Jiang Luoxia. I gave you a chance just now, but you didn't take it. It's too late now. Seeing that Jiang Xiu couldn't break through his defense, Mu Sun was overjoyed. His fist was already in front of Jiang Xiu. Umph. Jiang Xiu coldly snorted. He stretched out a finger and tapped his fist. Jiang Xiu's strongest point was actually the physical strength that he himself didn't care about. In other words, brute force. But to block Mu Sen's heavy fist with a single finger was enough to make people's teeth drop. But what made people even more dumbfounded was that Mu Sen suddenly screamed in terror. Jiang Xiu's lips curled into a smile. The price of ignorance. Ah. Mu Sen's mouth suddenly issued a miserable scream, but it wasn't because he was trampled to death. Instead, Mu Sen's entire body suddenly burst into flames. It was as if a tree had caught fire, and this fire wasn't an ordinary fire. Big brother. Mu Sen burned very quickly. In the blink of an eye, he was burned to ashes. Dead. Mu Sen, who was ranked on the demigod rankings, died just like that? He was burned to death by Jiang Xiu with a single finger. Chapter 166. Everyone looked at Jiang Xiu in shock. How could this person be so powerful? He could burn a demigod to death with a single finger? This was not because of Jiang Xiu. It was because of the curse that they had just been cursed. Mu-sun had also been cursed, and the curse had taken effect. It should not have happened so quickly, but this was a fire curse. After Mu-sun turned into wood gave birth to fire, which meant that the curse had taken effect earlier. Run quickly. When the Jin family saw that their demigod had been killed like a baby, they fled in all directions. Seeing them run away, Jiang Xiu had no intention of chasing after them. However, Li Qingji asked, "Mr. Jiang, are you going to let them go just like that?" Jiang Xiu said, "They've been cursed. They won't survive." Only then did everyone remember that everyone present had been cursed. No one could survive. For a moment, everyone present fell silent. "Mr. Jiang, you're so powerful. You must have a way, right?" At this moment, Jiang Xiu was like a god in their eyes. The surviving robbers, Professor Su, and the students of Imperial College all looked at him eagerly, hoping that Jiang Xiu could lift the curse and save their lives. Jiang Xiu said, "I just said that the curse can be lifted by going to another world." Professor Su was full of doubts and wanted answers from Jiang Xiu. He wanted to ask Jiang Xiu if he was really a god. He also wanted to ask Jiang Xiu where his power came from, but he did not dare to. Moreover, they were mainly thinking of a way to lift the curse now. "Jiang Xiu, what does going to another world mean?" Jiang Xiu said, "It means what it means. What else can it mean?" Professor Su said, "How can people go to another world?" Jiang Xiu said, "Death." Everyone present looked bitter. If death could lift the curse, then it was no different from not being lifted. They would die anyway. Xieting said, "Mr. Jiang, please save our lives. Jiang Xiu, please save us. For the sake of being classmates." Although they didn't understand what Jiang Xiu meant, Jiang Xiu was so calm that they thought Jiang Xiu must have a way. Otherwise, even a god couldn't be so calm in the face of death. Who wasn't afraid of death? Jiang Xiu pondered for a moment and said, "Go find some gravel, some withered grass and some firewood." Everyone was overjoyed when they heard Jiang Xiu's words. They followed Jiang Xiu's instructions and went to search for the items. Some curses were unsolvable, and such curses were regarded as forbidden curses. The cost of casting the curse was also enormous. Most of the time, one had to pay with their own life. Most of the curses were solvable, but it depended on one's strength. The wrath of the yin-yang fire god was about to crawl to the other shore of hell, to fall into eternal damnation in another world. This was still unsolvable for mortals, but in Jiang Xiu's eyes, there was a path to survival. It was enough to fool the curse. It didn't take long for those people to find everything. He asked the giant golden god to dig a hole in the ground. This was too easy for him. He just had to squat down and fish, and he could fish out a hole big enough to bury everyone. Jump down if you want to live. The hole was 2 or 3 meters deep. Li Qingji, Bandit, and the others jumped down without hesitation. Jiang Xiu didn't have to spend so much effort to kill them, but the teachers and students were hesitant. Professor Su asked, "What are you going down for?" Jiang Xiu said, "Bury them alive." Everyone present couldn't help but gasp. "Bury them alive?" Professor Su's expression was ugly. "Student Jiang Xiu, are you joking?" Jiang Xiu didn't reply. "Hurry up if you want to go down. If not, I'll have to seal the soil." Li Qingji vaguely felt something, but he couldn't seem to figure it out. However, he trusted Jiang Xiu. What kind of existence was a demigod? "Professor, you'd better come down quickly. Do you want to wait for the curse to take effect?" Professor Su and the other experts looked at each other and began to jump down one after another. Seeing that everyone had gone down, Jiang Xiu said, "Put the stones and straws on top of you." Everyone didn't understand, but they did as they were told. Seal the soil. The golden giant's underling grabbed the soil and filled the hole. The people inside couldn't help but scream. Anyone who was buried alive would scream. Some people even cried. It felt as if they were really buried alive. Perhaps at this moment, they really felt that death was approaching. After burying them, Jiang Xiu drew a huge talisman around the private hole. Then he lit the firewood in the northwest corner of the hole. This was the most superficial trick to deceive the heavens. When the firewood was extinguished, It was equivalent to the lights of everyone inside being extinguished. Of course they were dead. The curse would naturally be lifted. Get them out. Hurry up. The giant golden god didn't dare to be slow. He naturally understood the principle behind Jiang Xiu's actions. It was nothing more than deceiving the heavens and making them think that everyone underground was dead. Even their corpses were left in the wilderness with weeds and gravel on their bodies. Then, if everyone was dead, the curse of the fire god would naturally be lifted. He dug up the soil and caught these people one by one. They were only the size of his palm. They were very mini. Bah, bah. Their mouths were full of sand. This is it. Jiang Xiu said. Look at the curse on your arms. Everyone raised their wrists and looked. They were all overjoyed. The flame patterns on their arms had all disappeared. Some people's patterns had been burned to their elbows. Now they were all gone. It's really gone. That's great. I don't have to die. I don't have to die. Li Chengji and his son walked over and said sincerely, "Thank you, Mr. Jiang, for saving our lives." He was sincere. If it wasn't for Jiang Xiu, they definitely wouldn't have been able to escape this disaster. Forget it. Xieting was also overjoyed. But at the same time, a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. This curse was also used by the ancestors of the ancient desert city to stop foreign invaders. Jiang Xiu asked, "Miss Xie, where is the entrance to the ancient desert city?" Xieting knew that Jiang Xiu's goal was the ancient desert city. He wouldn't give up so easily. She shook her head and said, "I don't know. I really don't know." Jiang Xiu saved her father, and now he saved her. She said, "I've come to the desert so many times to go in, but I haven't found the entrance." Jiang Xiu said, "It's okay. Golden Giant, where is the entrance to the ancient desert city you're guarding?" The Golden Giant pondered. His purpose of living here was to protect the ancient desert city. If he said it, wouldn't it violate the meaning of his existence? Jiang Xiu said, "What? If you don't want to say it, don't forget that your life is in my hands." As soon as he said this, the talisman in the Golden Giant's body suddenly lit up. The Golden Giant frowned in pain and said, "The ancient desert city is the place I'm guarding. You can kill me, but I can't say it." Jiang Xiu said, "You keep your word." In fact, with Jiang Xiu's ability, it wasn't difficult for him to find the entrance here. He said, "Even if you don't tell me, I know that the ancient desert city is buried underground." The Golden Giant didn't say anything. Jiang Xiu continued, "Don't forget how you appeared." At this point, the Golden Giant's expression changed. He had emerged from the ground. After Jiang Xiu finished speaking, he walked forward. The people behind looked at each other and quickly followed. They had no water or food now. If they stayed here, they would die. The only way to survive was to find the ancient desert city. There was water and food inside. Of course, there were also many ancient books and countless gold and silver treasures inside. Moreover, from the looks of this Golden Giant guarding it, there might be a huge secret hidden inside. Not long after they walked, they saw a stone staircase leading underground. The Golden Giant's heart was crumbling. This mark was revealed when he came out. Otherwise, it would be deeply hidden in the depths of the desert, and would be impossible to find. The reason he came out was because someone had killed people here. Fresh blood once again stained this place. This made him extremely angry, but he didn't expect that. "Come, let's go down." Xieting followed behind Jiang Xiu with an excited expression. After coming so many times, it turned out that the entrance to the ancient desert city was 10 meters underground. Who would have thought that? "Mr. Jiang, be careful. According to the records of my ancestors, it's very dangerous inside." Chapter 167. According to Jiang Xiu's estimation, the staircase was over 100 meters deep. Due to the poor visibility, the group walked slowly. It took them 10 minutes to reach the bottom. The underground was very spacious, completely different from the underground mausoleum they were familiar with. It was as if there was no end in sight. Apart from the passage under their feet, the left and right sides were empty. It was as if there were cliffs on both sides. They couldn't see the bottom even with the naked eye. "We're here. This is the ancient desert city?" The scene in front of them was exactly the same as what they had seen in the information, but it was much more shocking than what they had seen in the images. Who would have thought that there was such an underground ancient city in the depths of the earth? Moreover, this ancient city was floating on the ground 400 years ago. Let's find a water source first. Professor Sue and the others were dying of thirst. Most of them felt like they were about to turn into jerky. The ancient desert city used to be a place where people lived, so there must be a water source. Once they entered, they could feel the humidity in the air was much higher than outside. The group of people passed through the ancient path and entered the ancient city. However, what they saw caused them to be even more shocked. They saw numerous houses, as well as the streets along the way. Broken divine statues could be seen everywhere, and each of them exuded an ancient and mysterious aura. Ah! Chiu Inru suddenly screamed. Everyone jumped in fright. What's wrong? Chiu Inru stood in place trembling. She said pitifully, There's a skeleton. Only then did everyone notice that there was a white skeleton at Chiu Inru's feet. Judging from the size of the skeleton, it should be a human. Professor Su said, Don't worry, it'll be fine. It's not strange for there to be corpses in the underground mausoleum. However, as they walked deeper, they saw more and more corpses. Jiang Xiu noticed that Xie Ting's face darkened. She was more careful than anyone else, afraid of stepping on them. Jiang Xiu asked softly, Miss Ye, do you know who they are? Xie Ting shook her head. No, I don't know. Since she was a descendant of the ancient desert city, then the corpses here were most likely her ancestors from hundreds of years ago. It was reasonable that she couldn't bear to step on their corpses. Jiang Xiu squatted down beside a corpse. This corpse was leaning against the wall. So Jiang Xiu could see at a glance that many parts of his throat and spine were black. They seemed to have died from poisoning. Xie Ting didn't say anything. Professor Su, who was on the other end of the line, said, Jiang Xiu's words aren't completely correct. We've also examined the body. He was probably poisoned first before being killed. Legend has it that the army of the Ming dynasty came here more than 400 years ago, and even received help. What a pity. Judging from the current situation, the road they were on was most likely a main street at that time. Along the way, there were corpses. From the various traces, they should have encountered some kind of resistance and massacre. This place should have been massacred, and not because it was moved or hidden by the desert climate. After walking through the first section of the street, there were at least 200 corpses on the ground. Some of the corpses were only a meter tall. According to their ages, they should be 5 or 6 years old children. They had also been poisoned before being killed. How cruel. Chiu Inru said softly. Xie Ting lowered her head and didn't say anything. There were some expensive accessories on the corpses. There were pearls, agates, and diamonds. Together with their age, they were quite expensive. A string of them could easily sell for millions, or even tens of millions. At the same time, they also had high archaeological value. There were also some living utensils around them. Jiang Xiu's cold eyes swept over, and saw that someone was trying to take those things. I advise you not to touch them. I removed the curse for you using a concealment technique. In the eyes of the caster of the curse, you are already dead. If you try to take things from here, the caster of the curse will definitely realize that you are still alive. What will happen? Do you still need me to explain? After saying this, Shen Duan quickly put the pearl necklace back on his neck. Ah! Suddenly, a heart-wrenching scream resounded in the silent underground city. Immediately after, everyone saw a person's body suddenly burst into flames. It was Morning Leopard. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was burned to ashes. The fire god's curse. It's the fire god's curse. This scene was exactly the same as the people who had been burned to death before. How can this be? Professor Su, Chiu Inru, and the others quickly looked at their wrists. When they saw it, their expressions changed. The flames that had disappeared from their wrists reappeared. Jiang Xiu frowned. What did he do? No one answered. Xie Ting said coldly, he probably wants the treasures here and wants to take them for himself. Professor Su said, Jiang Xiu, what should we do now? The curse is here again. How about we trouble you to cast the spell again? The students looked at Jiang Xiu with pleading eyes. Jiang Xiu said, The trick is a trick. It can only be used once. Ah. Everyone was speechless. Then what should we do? Jiang Xiu also looked at his wrists. The flames on his wrists reappeared. He frowned. They had cast the spell under the same spell. If one of them was exposed, everyone would be implicated. Xie Ting's dejected voice was heard. Mr. Jiang, I have it too. Li Chengji asked, Mr. Jiang, do you have any other ideas? Jiang Xiu said, I don't have a way. Of course, there was a way, but none of them could do it. They had to break through 10,000 with strength, and use a power 100 times stronger than the curse to directly destroy the curse. But who could do it? Jiang Xiu was only a demigod now, and this was a god's curse. He muttered to himself, because this curse originated from this ancient desert city. In this ancient desert city, there should be a way to remove the curse. Archaeologists had studied curses before. There was indeed such a theory. The way to break the curse was how it started and how it ended. Professor Su said, then let's quickly enter the city and look around. This time, everyone became anxious. They sped up and walked inside. The wrath of the yin-yang fire god had to crawl to hell on the other side. In another world, they would fall forever. Everyone look. What is this place? It looks like a school? Their attention was attracted by the words carved on the walls. Moreover, the corpses on the ground were very concentrated. Judging from the size of the corpses, they were all children. They were all poisoned first and then killed. What are these words? The words on the walls had not faded. Jiang Xiu looked over. He could not understand the words. It should be the words created by the tribe in the ancient desert city. From the looks of it, it was somewhat similar to the words on the longevity stone talisman. Hey, what's in this child's bulging waist bag? Why is it still moving? A student noticed something that looked like a money bag hanging from the waist of a corpse on the ground. Don't open it. Xie Ting screamed in horror. But it was too late. The student had already opened the bag. Flying insects flew out like fireflies. Run. Xie Ting screamed. She was the first to turn and run. She took large strides and ran at full speed. Before anyone could react, they heard buzzing sounds that sounded like mosquitoes. Thousands of fireflies rushed out of the bag and surrounded the person who opened it. Ah! He screamed in pain. His whole body was covered with fiery red flying insects, twisting nonstop. From afar, he looked like a red monster, which made people's hair stand on end. What are those? Xie Ting said as she ran. Those are goo worms raised by the girls in the ancient desert city to protect themselves. When Xie Ting saw the child's pouch, she recognized it as a goo worm pouch. She knew that there were goo worms inside. Since they were still moving, it meant that they were still alive. She could imagine how many of them had multiplied over the past 400 years. Turning their heads, they saw red dots. They were densely packed together. Accompanied by buzzing sounds, they chased after them relentlessly. They're here. Hurry. Running on foot was not as fast as flying in the sky. This group of people was already at their limit. They gritted their teeth and ran forward. Someone shouted, "There's a palace here. Let's go in." A group of people hurriedly rushed in and blocked the door. Ah! Terrified screams came from inside. Behind the door of the palace was the abyss of 10,000 battles. There was only a small path. Without looking at the people below, they fell down. Chapter 168. Who would have thought that the fall of the ancient desert city would cause the palace to be hollowed out? The people who fell down screamed in despair for a long, long time. The hollowed-out area was bottomless. The people who saw this scene stood on the road and felt their hair stand on end. Their legs were trembling. Some of the timid people who were afraid of heights directly sat on the ground. If it wasn't for their good luck that they stepped on solid ground, they would be the one who fell. Some parts of the path in front of them were hollowed out, while others were solid. Further ahead was an ancient palace. It was simple and unadorned, and there were some blurry ancient pictures on it. It was filled with the vicissitudes of time, and there was a mysterious aura around it. The group of people walked over. What's written on it? The pictures on the wall became clearer. There were pictures and words, and it didn't look like a simple decorative statue. This looks like the uniform of the Ming Dynasty's soldiers. Professor Su was helped over by someone. He carefully looked at the picture and nodded. It is indeed the uniform of a general from the Ming Dynasty. It should be the uniform of a 5th-rank general. If I'm not wrong, the person in the picture should be Wang Chonglin from back then. What does it say? Professor Su shook his head. This isn't the language of the Western regions. I can't understand it. Why is there a demon drawn on the side? Jiang Xiu couldn't understand it either. It should be the language of the tribe. I can understand it. Everyone looked over. Xie Ting clenched her fists and trembled. It says that the city lord of the ancient desert city met a Ming Dynasty army in the desert. At the time, they all fainted and were severely dehydrated. He saved them and brought them back to the ancient desert city. However, he didn't expect that to be the beginning of a nightmare. As Xie Ting watched, she said, "These soldiers of the Ming Dynasty were shocked by the martial arts cultivation of the people of the ancient desert city. Even a 10-year-old child could easily defeat their strongest martial artist. They didn't dare to imagine what would happen if such a race attacked the Ming Dynasty one day." At the time, General Wang Chong of the Western regions, Wang Chong, gave the order to nip this danger in the bud. They knew that they were no match for the people of the ancient desert city, so they thought of using poison. These fiendish Ming Dynasty people completely ignored the kindness of the city lord for saving their lives. Not only did they poison their food on the day of the pilgrimage, they even took up their butcher's knife and slaughtered the entire city. Hearing this, everyone present lowered their heads in shame. Xie Ting said, "At that time, the saintess who was on a pilgrimage and a small number of people who were in charge of the sacred sacrifice were able to avoid the calamity, because they had to fast." Her gaze swept over Professor Su, Expert Qian, and the students from the imperial capital. "This is the truth you're looking for. Now that you've found it, will you announce it to the public?" Everyone remained silent. "You won't." Xie Ting's gaze returned to the painting. She continued, "Those who survived decided to take revenge on the Ming Dynasty." She suddenly stopped. "And then?" Qiu Yinru asked. Xie Ting said, "That's all. This is the last painting." Xie Ting should be the descendant of those who survived. Judging from her current life trajectory, they didn't know what had happened, but in the end, they had integrated into the Han people's lives. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Who would have thought that the destruction of the ancient desert city was due to the Ming Dynasty's army? The Sahagins had saved them, but they had massacred the entire city. It was truly ironic. As the descendants of the Ming Dynasty, they were ashamed of their ancestors. In this world, people would always harm others for their own benefit. It was the same for humans, ghosts, and gods. What's that? It should be the altar of the saintess mentioned above. There was an equally well-preserved altar in the depths of the palace. There are words on it. Perhaps it says something? Let's go take a look. The group hurried over. Suddenly, with a bang, the entire altar shook. Following that, the entire palace seemed to be shaking. The runes on the altar flickered, and the entire altar emitted a gentle light. What's going on? I can't move. For a moment, screams rang out. Everyone, please don't panic. No. In the rumbling sound of the mountain rocks shattering, the entire altar fell faster. Everyone cried out in weightlessness. They felt that the mountain rocks supporting the altar had collapsed, and they were falling with it. Help! Help! At this moment, everyone's heart sank to the bottom. Were they going to fall to their deaths? Splash, splash. The sound of falling into the water could be heard. There was a river below them. One by one, they fell into the river. Only Jiang Xiu was an exception. He slowly landed and stood on the water. With a loud bang, the water splashed more than 10 meters high. The core of the altar fell into the water. Phew, that scared me to death. Many people heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, there was a river below. Otherwise, they would have all fallen to their deaths. One by one, they swam to the shore. After reaching the shore, one by one, they collapsed to the ground, exhausted. They had just escaped death. They gasped for breath and couldn't recover for a long time. Where's Xie Ting? Jiang Xiu's gaze swept over everyone, but he didn't see Xieting. I think I saw her fall next to me. Qiu Yinru coughed a few times and said. Her hair was wet and her face was very pale. She can't swim? No one knew the answer to this question. Xieting wasn't an ordinary girl. There was no way she couldn't swim. However, things were unpredictable. Jiang Xiu frowned and dove into the water. The water was very cold. After entering the water, he felt cool all over. At the same time, light shone from the bottom. He saw that Xieting was in the water, and she seemed to have fainted. She was motionless. Jiang Xiu approached her, but he suddenly felt dizzy. It was as if his consciousness had left his body. His heart suddenly jumped up in shock. After coming out of the water and taking a deep breath, he frowned. He was very surprised in his heart. How could this be? However, he didn't have time to think about it. If he hesitated any longer, Xieting might drown. He dove into the water again. With his guard up, Jiang Xiu didn't feel dizzy like before. He swam towards Xieting, but he saw her eyes wide open. They were filled with a pleading expression. She tried her best to reach out to Jiang Xiu. This was a very strange position. Xieting seemed to be bound by some unknown power. Logically speaking, if you were awake, even if you couldn't swim, you should at least struggle a few times. Why was she motionless in the water? Jiang Xiu grabbed her hand and brought her to the surface of the water. Shua, Jiang Xiu directly flew out. And then the two of them landed on the shore together. Jiang Xiu felt very tired. He sat on the ground like Xieting, panting heavily. Xieting looked at Jiang Xiu and said, Big brother Jiang, thank you. Jiang Xiu's face was still cold. However, the situation just now was very strange. He turned to look at Xieting. Her eyes were very warm and full of gratitude. However, Jiang Xiu felt that something was wrong. Xieting called him Big Brother Jiang, but she always called him Mr. Jiang. In reality, their relationship wasn't close to the level of a big brother and a little sister. Are you okay? Jiang Xiu let go of her hand. His gaze froze. Xieting's left wrist was as white as snow. There was no fire god's curse symbol on it. Her curse was broken? The yin-yang fire god's wrath. She had to crawl to the other side of hell and fall forever in another world. It seemed that it could only be broken when she went to another world. Miss Xie, come and take a look. What do the words on the altar mean? Xieting stood up and walked towards the fallen altar. Her gaze landed on the words. The sinner who provoked the fire god's wrath will welcome the arrival of the saintess. The two worlds will intersect. When that time comes, the Ming dynasty will be destroyed. Everyone present was confused. What do you mean? Xieting shook her head. I don't know either. Professor Su said. Could it be that time and space intersect? Many doomsday scholars believe that the end of the world intersects with another time and space. When that time comes, the world will be destroyed. That sounds like it, Li Qingji said. This is the Shahagan people's revenge against the Ming dynasty. The arrival of the saintess. Is there anything else? They originally thought that it was just a story. However, there was a giant golden god outside. What was written on the altar could really happen. No. It's smashed into pieces. I can't see it clearly. Chapter 169. At that time, they had fallen because the altar had collapsed. Most of them had fallen into the water, and the rocks on the ground had been smashed to smithereens. However, they understood the gist of it. Basically, the arrival of the saintess could cause space-time to fold. Professor Su said, the altar has been destroyed. The saintess shouldn't be able to descend. Li Qingji said, probably. It happened more than 400 years ago. It didn't happen then, and there's no reason for it to happen now. The saintess shouldn't be able to come. In my opinion, it's more important to find a way to remove the curse. Everyone agreed. Yes, it's better to remove the curse as soon as possible. Their lives were the most important. At the mention of the curse, they couldn't help but check their own curse patterns. Jiang Xiu glanced at their arms. Everyone's curse patterns were still there. Only Xieting's pattern was gone. What happened to her? Was it because of the altar or because of what happened under the water? Someone suddenly exclaimed. It was Chiao Inru. She looked at her white wrist and said, "It seems like the flame pattern is fading." When everyone heard this, they started to watch it again. It's really fading. Jiang Xiu also looked at his wrist. The curse pattern on his wrist was fading at a speed visible to the naked eye. It felt like the flame was slowly extinguishing. It was very real. It's gone. In the end, the curse pattern on his wrist disappeared. Haha, it's really gone. This came too suddenly. The group of people seemed to have won the lottery. They were so happy that they almost jumped up. That's great. It's fine. Although they didn't know what was going on, it was enough that the result was good. Even Jiang Xiu wasn't sure what was going on. He looked at Xie Ting suspiciously. Since the curse has been removed, let's find a way out of here. I don't want to stay in this damned place for another minute. As they spoke, the students squatted down and took out their goatskin water bottles. They filled them up. Walking out of the desert was a difficult task. Water was the most important. They had to fill as much as they could. Under the river, Jiang Xiu saw a shadow that was more than 1.5 meters tall. It swam very fast and looked like a fish. With a wave of its tail, its body suddenly jumped out of the water. Jiang Xiu shouted anxiously, "Be careful." A fourth-year student named Bai Jiejun, who was squatting on the shore, was caught off guard. He stared in horror at the monster that suddenly appeared in front of him. He didn't even have time to scream before the big fish monster opened its mouth and swallowed the young man, who was almost 1.8 meters tall. With 2 crunching sounds, he was chewed and swallowed into its stomach. Everyone who witnessed this scene felt their hair stand on end. His soul was about to fly out of his body. The big fish monster didn't fall back into the water. Instead, it landed on the ground. Its body moved another 7 to 8 meters as it charged towards Li Beng. Its open mouth was full of jagged teeth. Li Beng's reaction was quite fast. He immediately stood up and gave a side kick. The big fish monster swung its head and met Li Beng's kick head-on. Li Beng grunted and flew backward. What great strength! The big fish monster landed on the ground and charged towards Li Beng again. At this moment, everyone saw that the skin of the big fish monster was comparable to steel. Its body dragged across the ground, crushing the rocks on the ground. Ah! Li Beng screamed in horror when he saw the heavy rain coming. Bang! Suddenly, the big fish monster's body was cut into 2 by an invisible force. Green blood splattered. The 2 halves of the body fell to the ground and died on the spot. Jiang Xiu. It was Jiang Xiu who made the move. What kind of monster is this? It's too scary. Fortunately, we didn't appear when we were in the water. Otherwise, we would have all become its food. Everyone was still in shock. Li Qingji hurried over to help his son up. Li Beng, are you okay? I am fine. Li Beng was still in shock. Jiang Xiu's face was indifferent. His gaze landed on the fish monster. It was neither a monster nor a demon. How could there be such a species in the world? Roar. Roar. Professor Su said. Did you hear that sound? It sounds like... Everyone looked over and saw a monster emitting a black fluorescent light. Be careful. Professor Su looked back in horror. He saw a monster that looked like a beetle, and had the head of a wolf crawling towards them. Jiang Xiu swung his hand knife. With a bang, a flame jumped out of the monster's body. However, it crawled towards Professor Su unscathed. Its movements were very similar to that of a spider. Jiang Xiu was shocked. He didn't use his full strength in the attack just now. However, he did use a portion of his strength. It was enough to destroy gold and break jade. This monster's defense was so high that it was unscathed. Perhaps even bullets couldn't penetrate it. Whoosh! Another wave of chi energy. This force was much more violent than the previous one. With a bang, the stiff shell was cut open. Its flesh was badly mangled. Roar! With a strange cry, it collapsed to the ground. Oh my God, what kind of monsters are these? No matter how I look at it, they appeared out of thin air. The surrounding people were quite frightened. They couldn't help but move closer to Jiang Xiu. Now they felt that only by getting close to Jiang Xiu would they be safe. Who knew what kind of monsters would crawl out of the darkness? Appeared out of thin air? Jiang Xiu's gaze fell on the dead armored strange bug. Mr. Jiang, what should we do? Jiang Xiu said. Find the exit and think of a way to go up. There was wind and water where they were now, so there must be a way out. This way. Li Qingji was a feng shui master. He knew the best about hiding the wind. The place where the wind came from usually meant the exit. He led everyone in the direction where the wind came from. The group quickly ran to the wind gap and found a staircase leading up. The staircase was wide and flat. Without hesitation, they began to escape. Hurry, hurry up! The people behind kept urging, afraid that a monster would appear behind them and eat them if they were too late. The feeling was so scary that all the hair on their bodies stood on end. They wished that they could give birth to more legs for him. They escaped to the ancient city in one breath. When they came out of the staircase, they happened to be in the center of the ancient city. We finally climbed up. Scared the hell out of me. I'm so tired. A few people directly collapsed on the ground. In the center of this area, there was a huge statue of a goddess. Jiang Xiu glanced at it and felt that it was somewhat familiar. He couldn't help but look at Xie Ting. She actually looked similar to Xie Ting. What is that? Xie Ting said. It's the statue of the Holy Maiden. Jiang Xiu said. The Holy Maiden mentioned on the altar? Xie Ting said, yes. Jiang Xiu looked at the people lying on the ground and said to everyone, if you don't want to die here, hurry up and get up. Leave the ancient desert city immediately. Shen Duan panted and waved at Jiang Xiu. I can't escape. I really can't escape. If you want to escape you. Halfway through his words, he suddenly stopped. This was because he heard the low breathing of a beast. Everyone slowly turned around. A shadow was hiding in the darkness behind them. From its size, it seemed to be very big. It was at least twice the size of a lion in the zoo. Ah! Hurry up and run. The group of people quickly escaped. Jiang Xiu didn't follow them. Instead, he stood in place. The monster in the darkness hesitated for a full 15 seconds. Then, it silently retreated into the boundless darkness and disappeared without a trace. Jiang Xiu came to the bottom of the Holy Maiden statue. He lowered his head and looked down. The lotus platform under the statue was flowing with clear water. On the lotus platform, there were 6 goose egg-shaped holes. That shape. He reached out and took out his life and death rune and put it in. It fit perfectly. The original life and death rune should have been placed here. So there were 6 pieces. Only when all 6 pieces are gathered can the life and death rune be used. Since these 6 life and death runes weren't here, it was most likely the same as the one in his hand. They were in the hands of the descendants of the ancient desert city. Let's leave this place first. After escaping to the surface and feeling the scorching sun outside, these people's fear disappeared like the night. They collapsed on the ground, exhausted. We finally escaped. This trip to the desert was truly unforgettable. It was simply too exciting. Chapter 170. However, the nightmare wasn't far away yet. Leaving the desert was an extremely difficult task. After Jiang Xiu came out, the entire earth shook. The golden giant slowly sank into the ground. He had to be buried again. It didn't take long for the giant to sink into the desert and seal the exit of the ancient desert city with its body. In the sky, strong winds blew and sand filled the sky, forming a unique phenomenon. This kind of celestial phenomenon would last until nightfall, and would only disappear completely the next day. While everyone was marveling at this phenomenon, 2 figures tried to sneak away. Want to run? These 2 were the survivors of Meng Fei's group. Mr. Jiang, spare us. The one who stopped them was Jiang Xiu. I'm not interested in taking your life. I just want to know why you're chasing after Xie Ting, and how you know about the ancient desert city. One of the bandits said. We heard it from our boss. Meng Fei? Jiang Xiu asked. Then have you seen this stone before? The bandit raised his head to take a closer look before shaking his head. The other bandit said, This looks like the one General Meng is holding, but the color is different. Your one is red, and the one General Meng is holding is blue. Jiang Xiu said, General Meng? The bandit said, Our boss's older brother built a country in the desert. He has tens of thousands of brothers, as well as planes and tanks. Jiang Xiu said, Oh, that's interesting. If he guessed correctly, this Ming guy should be a descendant of the ancient desert city. Xie Sanxian had put the longevity rune stone in the study, and something had happened. However, this General Ming had been holding it for many years and was fine. There was only one explanation. This General Ming had adapted to the Protoss's evolution. He might have mastered the divine cultivation method. Mr. Jiang, let me kill these two. Li Chengji and his son angrily rushed over. The bandit's face was ashen. They had just killed so many people. It was impossible for these people not to seek revenge. The father and son held a machine gun. This gun should belong to the robbers. Jiang Xiu would never protect the two robbers. In the angry roar, the father and son of the Li family opened fire and killed the two robbers who were about to raise their guns to fight back. At this point, the group of bandits could be considered dead. Li Lei, brother, I've avenged you. The people watching from afar were all silent. This trip to the desert had completely overturned their understanding and worldview. They had seen the primitive form of a bloody and murderous world. And they had also seen God. Let's go back. The desert is really not a place for humans. Everyone packed up and hurried on their way. When they were about to leave the ancient desert city, Jiang Xiu couldn't help but look back. For some reason, he thought of the river and Xie Ting, who was submerged in the water, motionless. Goodbye, Mr. Jiang. Jiang Xiu seemed to hear her saying goodbye to him. Brother Jiang, what's wrong? Xie Ting saw that he was alone at the back and was reluctant to part with her. She stopped and waited for him. Her eyebrows were moving and her eyes were shining. She was very attractive. No, nothing, Xie Ting smiled and said. Then let's go quickly. The sun is going to set soon. You can take it, but I can't. Okay. Xie Ting seemed to be very familiar with the roads in the desert. With her as a guide, it was much more convenient. She knew where to go and where to find water. When night fell, Xie Ting led them to an oasis. There was a big pool in the oasis. Not only did they fill up all the goatskin water bags, but the boys could also take a bath. That was not all. They even caught 2 wild rabbits in the oasis. The group couldn't wait to kill the rabbits and barbecue them. After eating and drinking, the group was so tired that they fell asleep almost as soon as they touched the ground. It was around 10 o'clock in the evening. It was late at night in the desert. The group had slept for 3 or 4 hours. Xie Ting and Qiu Yinru secretly got up. Jiang Xiu hadn't slept soundly. He always felt that Xie Ting was strange. He felt that this Xie Ting wasn't the Xie Ting he knew before, but they looked exactly the same. Thus he quietly followed her. Well, this was amazing. He almost got a nosebleed from the spiritual cultivation. It turned out that these 2 girls had come to the pool to take a bath. They were embarrassed because the boys were inside. Seeing that they were all asleep, they secretly got up to take a bath. Speaking of which, they hadn't taken a bath for more than 10 days. For girls who liked to be clean, it was very uncomfortable. The moonlight shone on the surface of the lake, reflecting a dazzling white light. Jiang Xiu could clearly see the alluring bodies of the 2 girls twisting and turning in the water. This fellow was able to see it with a clear conscience. It's so comfortable. It's been so uncomfortable these days, Qiu Yinru said. Yeah, my head was full of sand, even my underwear. It was so uncomfortable when it rubbed against my body. Wow, it's so comfortable now. It's too bad I don't have any clothes to change into, Xie Ting said. Yeah, I really want to leave the desert soon. Qiu Yinru glanced at Xie Ting's chest and said, Girl, how old are you? Xie Ting said, I'll be 17 soon. Qiu Yinru said, You're a year younger than me. I really couldn't tell. Qiu Yinru's eyes revealed a bit of envy. She wasn't bad herself, but she wasn't as good as Xie Ting. Jiang Xiu was also quite surprised. He didn't expect Xie Ting to be so good. He had really underestimated her. This girl should be related to the bloodline of an outsider. The water in the pool swayed, gently hitting their delicate bodies. The night was very quiet, and the moonlight was very beautiful. It was like a beautiful painting of a border city. The 2 girls washed away the exhaustion of the past few days, completely unaware that they had been taken advantage of. However, that didn't seem to be the case because Xie Ting's lips curled up in a meaningful smile. She was bashful, but also a bit daring. Compared to Xieting, Qiu Yinru, who was very confident in her appearance and figure, was a little disappointed. Xieting's skin was fairer than hers, her facial features were prettier than hers, her figure was hotter than hers, her waist was slimmer than hers, and her legs were longer than hers. Qiu Yinru couldn't help but marvel at Xieting's care. Xieting was perfect from head to toe. She was perfect, and even a girl like her was mesmerized. "You're so beautiful," Qiu Yinru exclaimed from the bottom of her heart. "You're the beautiful one." The next day, everyone was in high spirits and moved much faster than usual. 3 days later, with Xieting, the desert sage, leading them back to the small town they had set out from. More than 30 people had set out, but only 9 had returned. When they set foot in the small town, Professor Su and Specialist Qian fainted on the spot. They were old and had been relying on their minds all the way here. As soon as they breathed a sigh of relief, they fainted. The people around them hurriedly sent them to the garrison's health station for treatment. The garrison had sent 2 soldiers to accompany them. Now that both of them were dead, they had to go and report. This matter should have been handed over to Professor Su, but since the important people had fainted, they had to take up the responsibility. There was a national flag fluttering in the wind at the entrance of the garrison. A large national emblem hung above the main entrance of the office building. Soldiers in military uniforms came and went in rows. Jiang Xiu didn't go in. Instead, he found a place to charge his phone. Bodhi Biogenetics picked up the call. "Mr. Jiang," Jiang Xiu said. "Pinghai Province Gene Family." "Pinghai Province's Gene Family? Gene Muzin's family? He's on the demigod ranking. There are also a few elders in the family who have gone far on the path of arcane realms," Jiang Xiu said. "I've already killed Gene Muzin." Even through the phone he could feel the other party sucking in a cold breath. He was extremely shocked. "A few elders are also dead," the other party said. Okay, Mr. Jiang." Including Wang Jianji and Li Puti, Gene Muzin was already the 3rd demigod. Mr. Jiang's strength was truly shocking. Since the Jin family was the Jiang family's money bag, Jiang Xiu naturally wouldn't let them go. After hanging up, he called Wang Xintong. "Xintong, prepare the funds. We'll attack all the listed companies of the Pinghai Jin family." "Okay," Wang Xintong replied. Every powerful government needed a powerful backing. He wanted to see how the Jiang family would deal with him and his father without the backing. Chapter 171. After hanging up the phone, he heard a commotion coming from the health center. It seemed that Qiu Yinru's students were arguing with the health center's staff. He went over to take a look. Qiu Yinru tugged at his clothes and said, "Jiang Xiu, he won't treat Professor Su and the others. He won't even give them normal saline." The other party was a woman in her 30s. She wore a white coat over her military uniform. "Student, I've already explained to you that there's an accident at the front line. We have a lot of injured people and don't have enough medicine. We have to protect the injured soldiers first." Qiu Yinru said, "Of course we can't ignore the injured soldiers, but the professors have to be prioritized. We've been in the desert for more than 10 days and the professors are so old. It's very dangerous." The female officer said, "You're on an archaeological expedition in the desert. Our soldiers sacrifice themselves to protect the dignity of the country. Moreover, this is the health center of the garrison. Naturally, we have to take care of the soldiers first." Jiang Xiu looked around. The corridor of the health center was full of beds. Some had bandages on their heads, some had lost limbs, and some were screaming. It was as if they had been withdrawn from the battlefield. Qiu Yinru couldn't win the argument. She said angrily, "Jiang Xiu, you talk to him." Jiang Xiu said, "I can't talk to them." Qiu Yinru's eyes widened. "You're such a big figure. How can they not give you face?" Jiang Xiu laughed. "She doesn't know who I am." The female officer looked at Jiang Xiu. She didn't know who he was. Qiu Yinru said angrily, "But why are those people so scared when they hear your name? You're so powerful. It doesn't make sense that you can't even suppress someone from the health center." Jiang Xiu said, "I'm not a landlord." He turned to ask the female officer, "What happened? Why are there so many injured soldiers?" The female officer said. The garrison was attacked by an unknown monster. It was two fiery red monsters with extremely strong defense and attack power. The saliva they spat out can even corrode iron plates. We had to use tanks and armored vehicles, and after paying a heavy price for so many soldiers, we were finally able to kill the two monsters. I don't know where those monsters came from. I've never seen them before. When Jiang Xiu heard this, he couldn't help but be stunned. The students beside him all looked at each other in dismay. This sounded like a monster from the ancient desert city. Jiang Xiu thought that his guess might become true. How about this? Those people should be exhausted. If there isn't enough medicine, give them some saline water each and keep them alive first. We can't just leave them to die. I believe the medicine will be delivered soon. Jiang Xiu's suggestion was very reasonable. No matter what, if someone really died, it would be hard for the medical station to explain. However, this female officer obviously didn't take them seriously and said firmly, I said no means no. The superiors have ordered that all the medicine must be provided to the soldiers first. Jiang Xiu was a murderous person, and he was even more ruthless to his enemies. However, he would not bully the kind, so he tried to persuade him with kind words. He did not expect that the other party would still refuse. Spiritual cultivation was embarrassed. This was called asking for humiliation. Qiu Yinru, Shinduan, and the others all looked at him strangely. It turned out that he was only fierce in a place like the desert, where there were no rules and restrictions. In the real world, he was nothing. Jiang Xiu said, Let me make a call. The female officer said, It's not good to call anyone. This is an order from the highest authority. The medicine must be provided to the soldiers first. The soldiers were not the only ones injured. There were many residents at the border as well. The group of students was at a loss. Then what do we do now? The female officer said, Let me give you a piece of advice. He's severely dehydrated and exhausted. Plus, he's so old. It's very dangerous for him to remain unconscious. Quickly send him to the city. Qiu Yinru said, It's 100 kilometers back to the city. The road is bumpy. Professor Su and the others might not be able to withstand it. She knew that the female officer did not want them to stay here. However, if they didn't send the professor and the others to the city, the consequences would be unpredictable. Let's go. We'll go to the city. The students finally gave in. Jiang Xiu said, If we send them to the city, they'll definitely die. Wait until I make a call. He took out his phone and called Gu Dikang. I'm at the Western Region Garrison's medical station. Ask someone to come over and coordinate. Gu Dikang said, Okay. Gu Dikang felt that he was almost Jiang Xiu's underling. He was such a high-ranking leader, but he was doing the work of a lackey. However, he was happy. He had already obtained Jiang Xiu's explosive fist. The next thing he needed to do was to select 100 elites to start training. It was very difficult to coordinate things between military regions. In order to avoid wasting time, Gu Dikang personally called the highest-ranking leader of the border garrison, Gu Guyong. I'm Gu Dikang. I'm the highest-ranking advisor of the military region, Jiang Luoxia. I'm at the medical station at the border of your military region. He has injured people there, and needs support from the medical station. Gu Guyong said. So it's Chief Gu. I'm sorry. We're short on medicine. I'm afraid I can't help. He didn't have a good relationship with the Western Region garrison. When he heard this, he immediately hung up the phone and called the main military region. After receiving the call, Gu Guyong stood up from his seat. Yes. I'll arrange it immediately. Gu Guyong hung up the phone and couldn't help but curse. Motherf *Gur Gu Dikang. My people aren't human. Why should I protect your people first? Little Chu, an officer in his 20s, came in. Take 2 soldiers and immediately go to the medical station. See if the Jingmen military region needs anything. Don't spoil their bad habits. Yes. The captain left the office building and drove the jeep to the medical station. He was very happy. The border had been continuously attacked by monsters. He was already too busy, and now he had to entertain the leaders of other military regions. Bullshit leaders. He drove slowly for 20 minutes. When he arrived at the medical station, he got off the jeep and walked inside. He saw many injured people and frowned. "Who is Mr. Jiang?" Jiang Xiu said, "I am." Little Chu looked up and down at Jiang Xiu. Seeing that he was only 20 years old, and that the people around him were all students, the anger in his stomach surged. He beat up the captain of the guards, and yet he had to entertain these kids. He despised Jiang Xiu even more. "What difficulties do you need help with?" Jiang Xiu said, "My professor and 2 other experts came out of the desert. They are exhausted and severely dehydrated. They need a doctor and saline treatment." Little Chu frowned even more. Just such a small matter? He raised his voice. "Who is in charge of the medical station?" The female officer quickly ran over. When she saw the flower on Little Chu's shoulder, her face changed and said, "Reporting to the chief, our medical station is short of medicine. According to the chief's orders, we need to protect the soldiers first." Little Chu then understood that there was no more medicine. He said, "When will the rest of the medicine be delivered?" The female officer said, 3 hours. Little Chu turned to Jiang Xiu and said, "You heard it. Wait here." Jiang Xiu's face darkened. "Is this how you came to coordinate?" After 3 hours without saline, oxygen, and other medical treatment, the professor is so old. It is very likely that he will die. Little Chu said, "Don't talk nonsense. Can't you see that our soldiers are also short of medicine?" Jiang Xiu pointed at the injured soldiers. "Although he broke his leg, his injuries have been treated. He only has external injuries. We can save some medicine to keep the professor and the other 2 alive." Qiu Yinru and the others also echoed. "Yes, Jiang Xiu said so." Little Chu said, "Are you a doctor?" "The doctor is here. He naturally has his reasons for this arrangement. Well, either you find a way yourself or wait for 3 hours. I still have an important task. I don't have time to entertain you." After saying that, he walked out. Suddenly, there was a loud bang outside the medical station. The soldiers were all too familiar with this sound. It was the sound of a grenade. Little Chu immediately shouted, "Get down!" He immediately rushed out. There was fire outside. The 2 soldiers beside the jeep shouted, "Captain, enemy attack. It should be the Mongolian army." Chapter 172. The soldiers on the periphery had already been cleared up by the extraterrestrial army. Dozens of people surrounded the health center with guns in their hands. A military jeep drove in, and a valiant-looking man dressed as a mercenary stepped out. After he made a gesture to press forward, dozens of people opened fire at the jeep. In an instant, sparks flew in all directions and bullets whizzed past his ears. Although the jeep was tough, it couldn't withstand such dense firepower. Little Chu and the others couldn't even poke their heads out, let alone retaliate. One of the soldiers said, "Captain, what do we do?" Little Chu had it easy at the border, as he was an internal strength expert, and the king of soldiers. However, there was nothing he could do right now. He remained silent with a sullen expression. He could only wait for the enemy's firepower to weaken, and then find a chance to retaliate. However, they heard a strange rolling sound. They looked down and saw a pineapple grenade roll under the jeep. Little Chu and the others were so scared that their eyes almost popped out. "Run!" The 3 of them flew out at the same time. With a boom, the jeep was sent flying a meter into the air. The burning jeep fell from the sky. After the fuel was ignited, there was another loud boom. The extraterrestrial army rushed over with machine guns. Little Chu and the other 2 soldiers were killed on the spot. Little Chu was dizzy from the explosion and couldn't stand up for a while. The sound of footsteps could be heard. The desert soldiers had already rushed in and surrounded the health center. The extraterrestrial army escorted them out one by one. Good, now no one could treat them as sick. The man dressed as a mercenary said, "Take everyone into the jeep." No, voodoo. Seeing the struggling crowd, the young mercenary pointed his gun at the sky and fired. "Whoever dares to resist will be killed on the spot." Boom! In the distance, a ball of fire exploded in the sky. This wasn't just the power of a grenade. This was a rocket or even an artillery shell. Heavens, it's the garrison headquarters. The extraterrestrial army laughed loudly. Some soldiers said excitedly, "Looks like we succeeded. Quick, take them all into the jeep." Jiang Xiu's group's misfortune didn't end. They were once again taken into the jeep. The jeep swayed as it drove into the desert. Xiao Yinru said, "Jiang Xiu, what's going on?" Jiang Xiu shook his head. Xiao Yinru asked again, "Then why didn't you resist? Can't you beat him?" Jiang Xiu said, "They have guns." "Liar, damned liar, it's this sentence again. It was the same last time too. Even the golden giant couldn't beat you, you're afraid of guns?" Speaking of which, she was really puzzled. Jiang Xiu could easily escape by himself, but he was willing to be kidnapped. Xie Ting said, "I'm guessing that Brother Jiang wants to meet this Mongolian." Jiang Xiu smiled. There were a number of cars behind them. There were quite a number of people who had been captured. Looking at the situation, they had captured at least 100 people. No one knew what their purpose was. "Don't talk." The soldiers guarding them on the carriage scolded angrily. Jiang Xiu asked, "Why did you capture us?" "Someone inconspicuous. The general wants to use you as a sacrifice," Xie Ting said. "So you're using us to show off your strength. But what's the point of capturing ordinary people like us?" Her expression was calm, without a trace of panic. The soldier's gaze wandered over Xie Ting's face for a long time. She was too attractive. He snorted. "It's not just you. Even the highest-ranking officer in the garrison, Wu Guiyong, has been captured." It was the explosion just now. "What?" The female military doctor in the white coat in the car cried out involuntarily. Now you're afraid?" They soon arrived. After all, they had driven here, so they couldn't have traveled too far. They could see a sand dune castle from afar. After the car drove in, the soldiers chased them away with guns. It was very noisy inside. "This is the Mongolians' nest?" After entering, Jiang Xiu saw an old man in a military uniform. His hair was completely white, and his uniform was covered in medals. The people beside him were trying their best to protect him. "Ha ha ha. Long time no see, Chief Wu." Following a hearty laugh, a middle-aged man strode out. He was also in a military uniform, but his clothes were shabby. He had a domineering look on his face, and his face was that of a mixed blood. He looked devilishly handsome. He was holding a stone in his left hand, the rune of life and death. Jiang Xiu's eyes lit up when he saw the stone in his hand. The stone in his hand emitted a faint blue light. It looked a little like flowing water. It was very magical. "Mengdu, how dare you capture me?" Mengdu's face was devilishly handsome. "What, are you that great? I can't capture you. But what can you do now that I've captured you? You're just a prisoner, yet you dare to put on airs in front of me? Do you think I won't shoot you?" Wu Guiyong's face was ashen, but he didn't dare to say another word. "Do you know why I've captured you?" Wu Guiyong shook his head. Mengdu said, "It's because the people from the Outer Seas Gate are here. You know that the people from the Outer Seas Gate hate you Sino people the most, but they can't do anything about it. I want to prove that I, Mengdu, can do what they can't." He took advantage of the geographical advantage. They were at the border, and the Outer Seas Gate's main area of activity was Europe. "Let's go. Let's show him." A middle-aged man stood in the middle of the garrison. He stood with his hands behind his back. His face was resolute, and there was a majestic aura in his beautiful eyes. He frowned when he saw the crowd of people being escorted into the garrison. "Zhou Hao, do you admit defeat now?" "Ha ha ha." Mengdu laughed heartily. He walked to his seat and sat down. He looked very pleased with himself. Countless guns were pointed at the prisoners in the field. When the man named Zhou Hao saw Wu Guiyong, his face darkened. He couldn't help but smile coldly. General Meng's men are indeed good at fighting. However, we are talking about martial arts today, and we are also fighting about martial arts. Your army can't possibly appear in a big city. Mengdu's smug expression slowly faded. "Who did you send from the Outer Seas Gate?" Zhou Hao shook his head. "I don't know either. But since the Outer Seas Gate wants General Meng to submit, they must have sent someone who can match up to General Meng." On Mengdu's side, there was an old man who looked like a fish in his 60s and had the demeanor of a transcendent being. The Elysium sure talks big. However, After seeing General Meng's powerful army, I'm afraid they are too scared to come. Everyone was confused. Who would send a representative and then not show up for half a day? Zhou Hao said. How dare you disrespect the Outer Seas Gate? Fine. Let's see if you can still smile when the Outer Seas Gate sends their people. Jiang Xiao and the others were shocked to find that they were just collateral damage. They were just fodder for Meng Du to show off. Wu Guiyong, do you know the rules of the Inner Seas Gate? Wu Guiyong shook his head. It's simple. Send someone to fight with my people. If you lose, I'll kill one person. If you win, I'll let one person go. Jiang Xiao couldn't help but shake his head. It was the same old trick again. His brother Meng Fei liked to play this way. He treated people's life and death as a game. He could control other people's life and death. Chief, I'll do it. On the other hand, true experts didn't want to stay in the borderlands. But the army didn't lack experts. It was a man in his 40s. He wasn't tall and had a gunshot wound on his body. Be careful, Wu Guiyong said. This person was called Bailey Lingfeng. He was Wu Guiyong's #1 general. Arhut, come out. This Arhut wasn't a real Arhut. His skin was dark and looked like a Southeast Asian. Please. As soon as he attacked, Wu Guiyong's face turned ashen. His expression was extremely ugly. Bailey Lingfeng was injured during the competition, and now he had a gunshot wound. What was worse was that the Arhut was completely shameless. He kept chasing after Bailey Lingfeng's injured left leg. The Arhut's attacks became faster and fiercer. Bailey Lingfeng kept trying to open his eyes. He was bleeding profusely and couldn't see clearly. Xieting asked softly, Big Brother Jiang, who do you think will win? Jiang Xiu glanced over and said, both of them are transforming strength masters. Their auras are about the same, so their strength should be about the same. However, Bailey Lingfeng is injured, and Luohan is waiting for him to tire himself out. He also has the psychological advantage. As expected, the outcome was quickly decided. Bailey Lingfeng lost. Pooh. Bailey Lingfeng's chest received a solid kick. His right chest caved in by more than an inch, and his clothes were torn to shreds by the shockwave of the energy. A footprint was left behind. Everyone felt a chill in their hearts. This kick had broken his sternum. His internal organs must have been seriously damaged. Bailey Lingfeng fell unconscious on the ground. What do you think, Wu Guiyong? If you agree to a bet, you have to accept your loss. Now I'm going to kill you. Meng Du was really vicious and evil. He actually closed his eyes and pointed his gun at the crowd, causing the crowd to cry out in alarm. Bullets don't have eyes, no one wants to die. Bang. The bullet left behind a trail of blood. Good, the result. The crowd was silent. They all looked at the man in the arena in horror. He was like a devil. Let me. Jiang Xiu said. He slowly walked out of the crowd. Chapter 173. Everyone's eyes were still on the person who had been killed. Wu Guiyong watched as the young man's life was taken away and his heart bled. The person who had been killed was a top secret who didn't understand martial arts or war. At the same time, his heart was filled with grief. Bailey Lingfeng was his strongest subordinate, and there was no one who could fight him. The result that awaited them was that they would be killed one after another as if they were playthings. But when he suddenly heard someone stand up, his heart was filled with astonishment. He saw a completely unfamiliar youth walk out and couldn't help but ask, "Who is he? Is he from our military?" The person beside him shook his head. No one knew him. The female military doctor recognized Jiang Xiu. She didn't think that Jiang Xiu would stand up. But even if he did, he would still die. The captain of the guards, Xiao Chu, was also being supported. His back had been injured by the explosion and was bleeding. When he saw Jiang Xiu come out, he was also very shocked. However, Xiu Yinru and the other students all had expressions of anticipation. They had all seen Jiang Xiu's strength. "Big brother Jiang, be careful." Jiang Xiu smiled faintly. He arrived in the middle of the field in just a few steps. His gaze swept over Meng Du and asked, "Is it true that if I win, I'll let one person go?" Meng Du said, "That's right. You won't go back on your word, right?" He had seen Meng Fei before. He was completely unreasonable and had no integrity to speak of. Meng Du said, Of course not. Mr. Zhou Hao from Heaven's Gate will be the witness. Good. Jiang Xiu nodded. He stood in place without moving. His gaze fell on Luohan. His meaning was simple. Come. You're courting death. Luohan's expression darkened. Luohan wasn't tall and his fist techniques were similar to Muay Thai. However, they weren't ordinary Muay Thai. His strength completely surpassed the limits of the human body. It should be some kind of ancient fist technique. A capable middle-aged man on the side asked. Mr. Zhou, how does he compare to you? He was one of Meng Du's men, and his name was Bai Chongyi. He was deeply trusted by Meng Du, and could be considered as the second in command of this armed force. Generally, the second in command was either very good at fighting or very intelligent. However, this person was neither. He could still be the second in command, and his subordinates were all convinced. Me? Zhou Hao laughed and shook his head slightly, as if he was helpless. I don't care about anyone here except for General Meng. As for this brother Arhut, 3 moves. I can kill him in 3 moves. When he spoke, he naturally revealed a strong sense of confidence. It was not easy to be an Elysium disciple. Bai Chongyi chuckled. Does Arhut have a secret skill? Definitely not an ordinary person. Zhou Hao said. So what? The two of them looked at each other and saw confidence in each other's eyes. The big brother had his big brother's battlefield, and the little brother also had his little brother's battlefield. No one wanted to be at a disadvantage. While speaking, Arhut had already soared into the air, and then pressed down. His elbow fiercely hit Jiang Xiu's head, and actually went straight for his skull. With Arhut's terrifying strength, he could easily shatter stones. What was the difference between a skull and tofu in his eyes? He wanted to take Jiang Xiu's life in 1 move. Jiang Xiu's eyes swept over, and instead of retreating, he advanced. This step seemed very small, but the distance was quite far. His speed did not seem very fast, but he arrived first. At this moment, there seemed to be a clap of thunder. Arhut's face was hit by Jiang Xiu's palm, and with a bang his whole face twisted and his whole body flew out. Whoa, there was an uproar. This result was really beyond their expectations, and their eyes fell to the ground. He won? The guards at the border could not believe that this young man not only won, but also won so easily. It should be known that this was a fierce bandit army that even Bailey Li had defeated. Wu Guiyong was really surprised, and the crowd almost cheered. He won. Meng Du's people's faces were extremely ugly. They had lost, and lost so miserably, in front of the people of Elysium. Bai Chongyi was dumbfounded. Zhou Hao was also shocked. Arhut was a transcendent state cultivator. Although he was confident that he could defeat him, he estimated that it would take at least 3 moves. Jiang Xiu said lightly. General Meng, according to our agreement, if I win, you will let 1 person go. Now that I have won, can you let 1 person go? Meng Du's face was pale, but he still squeezed out a smile. Of course, I, Meng Du, am a man of my words. But his eyes were fierce. The crowd suddenly became restless. Save the leader first. Yes, save the leader first. Wu Guiyong also looked over, but there was no pleading in his eyes. He was just looking at you. And of course, there was no lack of goodwill in his eyes. Let's see if you know how to behave, Jiang Xiu said. So I can let anyone go? Meng Du said gloomily. Yes, I can let anyone go. He knew the purpose of Jiang Xiu's question, and he was also prepared for this. So from the beginning, he had asked Arhut to fight. He wanted to suppress everyone, and he would not allow anyone to lose. But who would have thought that this young man would suddenly appear and beat Arhut? But the people of Elysium were here, and he was too ashamed to go back on his words. Jiang Xiu continued to ask. If I ask you to let Wu Guiyong go, will you let him go? Meng Du gritted his teeth. If he could stare someone to death, he would definitely stare Jiang Xiu to death. He gritted his teeth and said, My words are my words. Naturally, I won't go back on my word. The people below were overjoyed when they heard this, and their faces were full of joy. Wu Guiyong's face was also full of joy, and he asked, Young man, I still don't know your name. Jiang Xiu said, You don't need to know my name. Wu Guiyong nodded his head in appreciation. and thought to himself, what a good warrior, not forgetting to repay kindness. He really inherited the good tradition of the Western region military. Okay, I will remember you. Leader, take care of yourself. Leader, be careful. The people around began to warn the leader. Many years of subordinates had long been used to showing concern for their superiors, but they had never shown so much concern for their parents. Mengdu said, Wu Guiyong, you are lucky today, but you won't be so lucky next time. His words were full of anger. Originally, he wanted to catch Wu Guiyong to show his strength to the people of Elysium, but it was ruined just like that. But no matter what, it was better than losing his reputation. Wu Guiyong did not say any harsh words. If he angered Mengdu, he would change his mind. He turned around and wanted to leave. Wait. Everyone heard the voice and looked towards Jiang Xiu. They heard Jiang Xiu say, Did I say to save you? What do you mean? The guard on the side asked. Of course I want to save the leader first. Who here is more important than the leader? However, when they saw Jiang Xiu's gaze sweep over, Xiao Chu and the female military doctor had a bad feeling in their hearts. He said, I have nothing to say about your military hospital wanting to protect the soldiers first, but I won this battle, and I want to save my friends first. What right do you have to question me here? Xiao Chu said angrily. Kid, now is not the time to joke. Do you know who this person is? Jiang Xiu said. So what if he is the king of heaven? I will save whoever I want to save first. The crowd suddenly became rowdy. Wu Guiyong also understood that there seemed to be something between Jiang Xiu and Xiao Chu. He asked, Xiao Chu, what is going on? Do you have a misunderstanding with this young man? Xiao Chu said with a pale face. Leader, didn't you ask me to go to the military hospital to mediate? He is the consultant of Elysium. He wants the medical station to treat his teacher and classmates first, but there are too many patients in the medical station, and there is not enough medicine. We have to protect the soldiers first. As he said this, his voice gradually became softer. He did not feel that he was in the wrong, but now that he was asking for help, and because of his handling of the matter, he naturally could not say anything. The female military doctor also said, This is an order from the military, and we are also carrying out the order. A person who looked like a leader on the side said, Young man, since you are the consultant of the military, you should understand that this is not the time to be loyal. The most important thing now is to ensure the safety of the leader. Chapter 174. Jiang Xiu glanced at the leader and sneered, He's your leader, not mine. His life is precious to you, but it's worthless to me. His life has nothing to do with me. You. The leader was livid, but he couldn't do anything to Jiang Xiu. He had won this battle, so he had the final say on who to save. Jiang Xiu said, No one will stop you if you want to be someone's dog, but don't get in my way. How dare you? The leader was furious. Who do you think you are? How dare you talk to me like that? As your superior, I order you to let the leader go first. Otherwise, I'll report you to the headquarters, and you'll be dealt with according to military law. Jiang Xiu turned a blind eye to the leader's anger and ignored them. He walked in front of Xieting. Xieting looked at Jiang Xiu in astonishment. She was pleasantly surprised. She called out as if she was dreaming. Big brother Jiang, Jiang Xiu said, Why don't you go first? If something happens, I might not be able to protect you. Xieting's beautiful eyes lit up, sparkling and translucent. The people around her all looked at her with envy, wishing that they could become her. However, when they saw Xieting's beautiful face, they understood that beautiful women were always popular. Maybe it had something to do with that kid. Qiu Yinru lowered her head sadly. She had always thought of herself as a beauty, and many men in the Imperial College had gone crazy for her. But now, Jiang Xiu had given this opportunity to Xieting instead of her. She was extremely disappointed, and her confidence was shaken. An inexplicable feeling of grievance welled up in her heart. Her eyes unconsciously turned red, and tears hung on her eyelashes, ready to fall. Let's go. Jiang Xiu gestured for Xieting to go first. He was only one person and couldn't protect her all the time. The enemy had so many guns and bullets didn't have eyes. Brother Jiang. Xieting nodded. She believed that if Jiang Xiu didn't drag her down, it wouldn't be hard for him to escape. Take care of yourself. With that, Xieting walked out of the camp. Let him go. For the first time, Meng Du kept his promise. Following his orders, the checkpoints opened up, and Xieting walked out smoothly. Just as she was about to leave, she turned around to take a look before disappearing into the distance. Zhou Hao said, General Meng, you've lost a round. This little brother doesn't look weak. Do you still want to continue playing? Jiang Xiu defeated Arhut in one move. This strength was indeed extraordinary. However, from Zhou Hao's words, it seemed like he was looking down on Meng Du for not having any subordinates. Huazhang, come out. On the observation deck on the second floor, a figure appeared. He was very tall and bald. He jumped down directly from the second floor. And when he landed on the ground with his huge body, the ground shook a little. General, Meng Du said, you do it. Remember, don't embarrass me again. Yes, General. Huazhang was 2 meters tall. Coupled with his muscular body and dark skin, there were no less than 10 scars on his naked body. At first glance, one could tell that he had been through life and death situations for a long time. His body emitted a terrifying murderous aura. Transformation state. Not bad. Zhou Hao praised. I wonder how long you've been in the transformation state. Meng Du said proudly. Qi filled my entire body. Zhou Hao was shocked. Oh. Not only the people in the field, but even the people in the military were shocked. There was a rumor in the military that someone could catch a bullet with his bare hands. When he filled his body with qi, his qi could withstand the strength and temperature of the bullet. Many of them had seen it with their own eyes. But if he filled his entire body with qi, didn't that mean that when he circulated his qi throughout his body, the bullet couldn't penetrate his body? Then how could such a person defeat him? Ah! Huazhang roared and squatted down slightly. He exerted all the strength in his body. His muscles bulged and became as stiff as steel. There seemed to be a faint airflow floating on the surface of his body, covering it with a faint luster. That's terrifying. If this person were to enter the military tournament, he would definitely shine. Transformation state is the most difficult to deal with, especially when he has reached the transformation state. He's like a human tank that can crush everything. It's simply a nightmare. That kid can't win. The people in the military whispered. Their eyes had changed. In the first round, they were worried about Jiang Xiu and hoped that he would win. But now, they hoped that Jiang Xiu would be unlucky. Kid die. Huazhang stamped his feet, and his whole body pounced like a fierce tiger. According to Jiang Xiu's observation, this person should be talented. Otherwise, it would be very difficult for him to cultivate qi to fill his entire body. It was too difficult to open 100 acupoints. Moreover, he had to use external force to break through the acupoints. In order to achieve this, there was usually a point of origin of force that could be used to break through the acupoints, which was the so-called qi gate or Achilles heel in martial arts. Once someone found it, it would be the Achilles heel for a physique refinement expert. You want to find the qi gate? Meng Du laughed. I've shot him with a gun and cut his whole body with a knife. I've even tried the soles of his feet, the top of his head, under his armpits, and even his roots. He has no Achilles heel. In other words, his Achilles heel is inside his body. Everyone was shocked. If the qi gate was inside his body, didn't it mean that this person had no weakness? Even a tank had a weakness, but this person didn't? Then how could he win? Looking at Meng Du approaching, Jiang Xiu looked indifferent. Originally, his classmates were very confident in him. After all, he was someone who could even defeat a god like the Golden Giant. However, after hearing Meng Du's words, they couldn't help but be a little shaken. Facing a person who was invulnerable, anyone would feel despair. Jiang Xiu's lips curled into a contemptuous smile. It was indeed not easy for a mortal to reach this level of cultivation. However, a mortal was still a mortal. In front of a demigod, the difference between races would never be able to make up for it. What a pity. Jiang Xiu took a step forward. Just like before, he didn't look fast and his moves were simple. However, he arrived in front of Huazhang in the blink of an eye. With a bang, his palm landed on Hua Zhang's chest. A violent and invisible force shot out from Hua Zhang's back. Hua Zhang's face suddenly changed. His eyes were filled with confusion. He opened his mouth and spat out blood. He wiped it with his hand and looked at it. When he saw that his fingers were red, the confusion in his eyes gradually turned into horror. Whoosh! The crowd was in an uproar. He spat out blood. This blood was still flowing out of Hua Zhang's mouth. He couldn't stop it. He won again? Qiu Yinru, Shen Duan, and the others couldn't help but cheer. This time, not only the people from the military, but also Meng Du, Zhou Hao, and the others were stunned. Even they would have to put in a lot of effort to defeat a transcendent state cultivator, who had no Achilles heel. However, Hua Zhang won so easily. How did he do it? Jiang Xiu's expression was calm, as if he had just done something insignificant. He said, "I've won this round again. According to the rules, General Meng can let another person go, right?" Meng Du looked at Jiang Xiu again and nodded. "That's right. According to the rules, you can save another person. Save the chief. This time, we must save the chief first." Jiang Xiu had just saved the beautiful girl. They thought that she might be Jiang Xiu's girlfriend. It was understandable that he didn't want his girlfriend to be in danger, and saved her first. Then of course the chief was next. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. Save the chief first. Wu Guiyong also looked at Jiang Xiu eagerly. But Jiang Xiu's gaze elegantly ignored his ardent hope and fell on his circle of classmates. Shen Duan also wanted to beg Jiang Xiu to save him first. However, he knew it was impossible. He swallowed his words. Qiu Yinru also looked at Jiang Xiu. She was a perfectionist. She wanted to be the first. However, she couldn't do anything about it. She had to accept the second. However, Jiang Xiu looked away from her. Qiu Yinru's head exploded. She quickly lowered her head. She didn't know that she was so unimportant in his heart. She couldn't even be ranked second. "Qiu Yinru, do you want to go first?" The girl was already disheartened. She didn't expect Jiang Xiu to call her. She looked up with surprise. Don't misunderstand. Those people are more annoying than the last. Shen Duan and the others who survived often mocked him. Although it was a stupid reason, the girl accepted it. "Well, our people are here," Zhou Hao suddenly said with a smile. Chapter 175. Everyone turned to look at Zhou Hao. Someone from the Heavenly Gate was here? No one cared about Jiang Xiu or who he was willing to save. It was just a fight between children. Meng Du's face darkened. What a big fuss. I want to see who in the Heavenly Gate dares to act so recklessly. Zhou Hao's eyes flashed with disdain. Meng Du, you dare to look down on the Heavenly Gate? You're courting death. When they arrive, you'll be scared out of your wits. With that, he took a step forward and bowed. Mr. Unknown, please show yourself. Mr. Unknown, please show yourself. The scene was dead silent. There was no one in front of Zhou Hao. What's going on? Everyone scratched their heads in confusion. Was he trying to scare them? He bowed to the empty space and put on an act. Only Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed. He smiled. Interesting. It's rare to see such a divine ability. It seems some of the cultivation civilization on Earth has been passed down. He turned to Qiu Yinru. Hurry up and leave. You can catch up with Xieting. Qiu Yinru moved her lips and said with difficulty, "Thank you." He had helped her so much. He was her savior. She should have thanked him. But Qiu Yinru didn't know. She didn't want to thank Jiang Xiu. No one cared about Qiu Yinru's departure. Everyone's attention was on the empty space. A strange wind blew through the empty space. The paper on the table was sent flying. Suddenly, Meng Du and his subordinates, as well as the people from the military region, all widened their eyes in shock. A bone-chilling cold rushed from their backs to the top of their heads. How is this possible? Hiss, quite a few people sucked in cold sweat. Many people's expressions changed. It was unbelievable. In the middle of the empty space, a black figure suddenly appeared. This figure slowly became real. And at this time, everyone could see clearly that it was a man in his 50s. He appeared out of thin air. Is this a human? This must be the work of a celestial being, right? Some people's bodies were trembling, and their hearts were incomparably shocked. How did he get here? Did he come from a faraway place? Or was it that no one could see him? Heaven's Gate Taoist Scripture, Peerless Universe. Bai Chongyi felt as if something was pressing down on his throat. He spat it out with great difficulty. Demigod. The appearance of the person became clearer and clearer. It was a man in his 50s who looked like a devil. He had black hair and black eyes. He had a completely Chinese face. His eyes were like dots, and he was overflowing with dominance. He straightened his arms, his robes fluttering in the wind. His gaze landed on Mengdu. You are Mengdu, my opponent? Yes, are you from Elysium? The other party nodded slightly. No name. Mengdu greets Mr. Unknown. At this moment, Mengdu's body couldn't help but slightly tremble. A true demigod was a big shot on the demigod ranking. The unknown person said, "Kneel down and kowtow to the heavens. I'll spare your life. Or else die." Mengdu finally understood what it meant to have someone stronger than him. Although he was extremely shocked, and could even be said to be afraid, he was still the leader of the ferocious army. He didn't cower, but instead he became more ferocious. "I am indebted to Elysium. Mr. Unknown has personally come. I, Mengdu, can't disappoint you to the point where I don't even have the courage to resist. What harm is there in fighting Mr. Unknown?" The unknown person's eyes flashed coldly. "Those who resist Elysium shall die." Mengdu smiled. "Do you think that you are the only demigod? Roar!" Mengdu let out an angry roar, and a violent energy surged out of his body. His entire person seemed to have transformed into a werewolf under the moonlight. His face was ferocious, and the veins on his body were bulging. His skin instantly turned green, and his entire body swelled up. A 1.7 m tall man had transformed into a burly man like Huazhang. God's evolution. The unknown person nodded, as if this made him feel slightly satisfied. The surrounding people were shocked. What kind of martial arts is this? How can a person change so much? Is he still human? Jiang Xiu also saw this. Mengdu's evolution was indeed much better than Xie Sanxian's. Other than the increase in size and skin, there were no abnormal developments. This meant that his Protoss's evolution was still healthy. The increase in size was an increase in strength, and the change in skin was an increase in defense. Although his skin had turned green, which was a bit low level, he was still on the right path. Roar. A beast-like sound came from his throat. This was a low-level god language, and it was the same as the god language that Xie Sanxian had comprehended. It said, "Let's fight." Mengdu moved. His speed was so fast that he left behind a series of afterimages. The power of his fist swept through the air, causing the air to howl. The power of his fist was like Mount Tai collapsing. The strength of his fist was inconceivable. The faces of the people from the military changed. Mengdu was really a bandit from the border. With his strength he could challenge Xiaozhanbua. This fist could probably even destroy a tank. When this fist was thrown out, the ground couldn't withstand it and cracked. Emph. The unknown person stood there with his hands behind his back. He didn't move, nor did he block. He waited for the fist to come closer. Before the fist arrived, the violent fist energy had already arrived. Only then did he suddenly squat down. Boom, the air around his body started to spin. Chi-chi-chi-chi-chi-chi. The two air currents collided, and the sound of the collision was like the sound of broken blades and electromagnetism. At the same time, the unknown person's pure white clothes emitted a milky white light with a hint of green. His entire person seemed to be in a dream. From afar, he looked like a soft light. Roar! Mengdu's face gradually revealed a frightened expression. As his fist came closer, the frightened expression on his face became more and more intense. This was because he felt that the pressure on his fist was getting stronger and stronger. It had already reached a point where it was almost impossible to move forward. However, at this moment, his fist still hadn't touched the unknown person. However, almost all of his strength had already been reduced by the wind and light energy that the unknown person was emitting. Even if he could break through the opponent's defense and attack him, how much damage could he cause? At this moment, the unknown person moved. He lightly pointed his finger at Meng Du without a sound. Gotcha. As his finger touched Meng Du's fist, a sound suddenly rang out. Meng Du was sent flying as if he had been hit by a truck. At the same time, his wrist was strangely twisted, as if it had been fractured. However, the unknown person didn't have any intention of stopping. Before Meng Du was sent flying, he had already taken a step forward. He leaned to the side and sent out both of his palms. The strength of his finger was already so strong. It was simply impossible to imagine what would happen if his two palms landed on the body. Bang! Meng Du's entire body bent like a shrimp. He let out a miserable scream. Blood splattered everywhere. His entire body was sent flying even faster than before. The unknown person had already jumped into the air and descended from the sky. Boom! Meng Du was directly stomped down from the sky. It was as if Mount Tai had fallen. He heavily landed on the ground and directly smashed a hole in the ground. Meng Du fell to the ground and didn't make any sound. After being destroyed by such a powerful force, it was obvious that Wu Fa had come back to life. One finger, two palms, one kick. The leader of the Meng army who had ruled the desert for 20 years, Meng Du, had died. Silence, a deathly silence. They all looked at the man who had killed Meng Du in fear. It was as if a demon had descended. Weak. The first form is still too weak. If you can reach the second form and still maintain this state, perhaps you can exchange a few moves with me. After that, he looked around, especially those who were still vigilant. He clasped his hands behind his back. His eyes were filled with arrogance. Your leader has already been killed. Do you still want to resist? Why don't you put down your weapons and accept the offer? Zhou Hao swaggered out and respectfully bowed to the unknown person. He said, I don't know how powerful you are, sir. The Meng army looked at each other. Everyone's eyes were focused on Bai Chengyi. The leader was dead. Of course, they would listen to the second leader. Now whether they resist or submit, it was all up to Bai Chengyi. Bai Chengyi was also in a high state of shock. He hadn't recovered yet. It was too shocking. General Meng was killed in an instant. In his heart, he was like a god. Moreover, he didn't even give him a chance to live. Not only was he powerful, but he was also ruthless. I don't know how powerful you are, sir. Bai Chengyi submitted. In front of such a powerful demigod, how could he not submit? Chapter 176. The second in command, Bai Cheng, gave in one by one. The Meng army lowered their spears and bowed down. In front of such a powerful demigod, they did not dare to resist at all. Wu Ming of the Elysium was very famous. He was a well-known figure in many parts of Europe. He could be said to be an international tycoon. If the Elysium wanted to take over the Meng army, they could swallow them in one gulp. They could even take over the entire western desert. Sir, you are mighty. Elysium is mighty. The soldiers raised their spears and shouted. It was a way to show their loyalty to Wu Ming. Their voices were very loud. Thousands of people shouted in unison, and the sound waves shot into the sky. Wu Ming was already used to such scenes. There was no change in his expression. I didn't expect Wu Ming of the Elysium to come. Wu Guiyong's expression was very serious. Not only that, he had already taken over the Meng army. Chief, is Wu Ming very powerful? Everyone had seen his strength, but they were unfamiliar with his background, but they knew that he must be an extraordinary figure. This person became famous 40 years ago. At that time, I was still very young. He was a reclusive demigod in the heavenly gates and had been living in Europe. His family came to China once. Back then, he defeated 13 masters in a row and suppressed the entire Chinese martial arts world. He's powerful here. What happened after that? Wu Guiyong said. Later on, someone said that he lost to Fei Qing and promised not to enter China for the rest of his life. I didn't expect him to come here today, and even take control of this team. Fei Qing? Compared to the unknown, Fei Qing's reputation was much more resounding. That person was like a legend in the military. He was an epic character. Even the current 10 marshals would hold him in high regard when they mentioned him. Fei Qing's reputation was spread all over the world because of his resistance against the Elysium. The Meng army is already a headache. Now that they are controlled by the Elysium, they are even more difficult to deal with. It's hard to predict what will happen to the western border in the future. The unknown man's gaze swept across the garrison. When he saw Wu Guiyong, he was stunned. It wasn't because he knew Wu Guiyong. When he was famous in China, Wu Guiyong was still a rookie. It was because of the pole on Wu Guiyong's shoulder and his military rank. On the side, Zhou Hao smiled and explained, "I don't know, sir. The Mongolian originally captured the highest-ranking officer of the Western Region Garrison Army, to give you a show of strength. How could he know that sir is so decisive in killing?" This subordinate is also very shocked to be able to mobilize Mr. The unknown man's face was still indifferent. "I have 2 things to do on this trip to China. The first is to recruit the Meng army into the Heaven's Gate. The second is to kill someone." To be able to mobilize an unknown person, it must be an extraordinary figure. Not only Zhou Hao, but even the garrison was shocked. "Who is it?" An ominous glint suddenly shot out from the unknown person's eyes. "River fall down." Xin Duan, who was present, couldn't help but look at Jiang Xiu. He knew that Jiang Xiu's other name was Jiang Luoxia. An indescribable excitement flashed across his eyes. He thought that someone as powerful as Jiang Xiu wouldn't be so unlucky. He could only swallow his anger for the rest of his life. He really didn't expect that he would provoke such a powerful enemy. However, he wanted to kill Jiang Xiu. How could he not recognize Jiang Xiu in front of him? This was really worrying. Should he remind him? Bai Chengyi couldn't help but ask, "Why does this Jiang Luoxia need a human? He's actually worth Mr. Unknown's attention. Why don't we just send a few assassination teams to kill him?" The unknown man's cold gaze swept across Bai Chengyi's face. He sneered. "This person killed an old friend of mine from many years ago, Wang Jianji of the Wang family. He can even kill a demigod. Do you think you can do anything to him?" Bai Chengyi's eyes widened in shock. He looked very embarrassed. In fact, Bai Chengyi was able to become the second in command of the Meng army because of his stupidity. How could he not know that someone who could make the unknown man personally kill him must be extraordinary? However, if he didn't act stupid, how could he show Mr. Unknown's intelligence? Someone in the garrison said, "Could it be the Mr. Jiang that was rumored in Jiangnan a while ago?" Rumor has it that Mr. Jiang defeated the demigod of the Wang family and subdued the Wang family. Didn't they say it was a publicity stunt? The demigod of the Wang family died more than 60 years ago. The unknown man sneered. Suddenly, a light voice was heard. "You want to kill me?" As the voice sounded, everyone looked over. They saw the young man who attacked Jiang Xiu squatting beside Meng Du's body and taking the longevity stone talisman from his body. The unknown man sized up Jiang Xiu. Seeing that he was only a young man in his 20s, he sneered in his heart. Where did this ignorant kid come from? "You? Who are you?" Jiang Xiu played with Meng Du's longevity stone talisman. The size of Meng Du's longevity stone was about the same as the one in his hand, but the characters were different. Not only was the color red and blue, but the shape of the characters were also completely different. The red one in his hand was hot, but the blue one was cold and even a little cold. When he held it in his hand, the blood in his body was much calmer than usual. If he held it in his hand for a long time, he might be able to cure his blood from overheating. He could tell that the red one was hot-blooded, and the blue one was cold-blooded. In fact, both were bad. However, there were too many transcendents who were hot-blooded, so the cold-blooded one was closer to the blood of mortals. In fact, the blood temperature of mortals wasn't high. Jiang Xiu said, "Didn't you want to take revenge on me?" The garrison's people all looked at him. The leader who questioned Jiang Xiu just now exclaimed, "This kid is crazy. What kind of existence was this unknown person? He still dared to stand out. Wasn't this just letting others pick him up for free? Does he think that the unknown person is Meng Du's 2 useless subordinates?" The garrison's people all looked at him as if he was an idiot. Many people's faces turned pale. Originally, they were in a good mood because the unknown person had just taken down the Meng. They thought that the unknown person would let them go and let them leave safely. Now that this kid was causing trouble, they thought that the unknown person would resist and kill them all. Jiang Xiu said, since you want to take revenge on me, don't tell me you don't even know what I look like." Seeing Jiang Xiu approach the unknown person, the Mengdu soldiers all pointed their guns at him. This was to warn Jiang Xiu that if he took any more steps forward, they would open fire. These people were really loyal. They had just changed their leader, and they were already doing their best. In fact, this was an instinct that they had been trained by Mengdu. If anyone threatened their leader, they had to act. There was no room for negotiation. This was the biggest difference between a well-trained soldier and an ordinary bandit. Bang! Someone opened fire. The bold one wanted to take advantage of the situation and gain some merit in front of the new leader. The bullet flew out of the barrel at an amazing speed towards Jiang Xiu's head. Seeing the bullet go through the head, a wave of energy rippled in the air. The bullet lost its power and fell from the air. It landed on the ground and bounced a dozen centimeters high. Jiang Xiu's face was calm. He was still walking calmly as if no one had shot at him. The people around him all widened their eyes in shock. The bullet was blocked by him? If Xie Ting and Qiu Yinru were still here, they would definitely curse him. "Liar, didn't you say that you were afraid of guns? Is this what it means to be afraid of guns? Even bullets can't get close to you." Zhou Hao's eyes also widened. Jiang Xiu had just fought 2 rounds, and he had a deep impression of him. He had already thought highly of Jiang Xiu, but he did not expect that he had still underestimated him. He knew that he could dodge bullets with his superhuman reaction and judgment, but there was no way he could block bullets like this. At this level, perhaps only the legendary demigods could block bullets like this. Could this young man be a demigod? What was going on today? Demigods were everywhere. It had been decades since one had been seen, but today he had met 3. The unknown person's face was also filled with shock. He could feel Jiang Xiu's power. He said with a gloomy face, "Who are you?" "The person you're looking for." "Jiang. Down. Down." Chapter 177. Everyone present was extremely shocked. This inconspicuous kid actually had such a powerful background and was so powerful. Especially little Chu and the female military doctor. Their hearts were like overturned bottles of mixed feelings. They had actually offended such a powerful person. "You are Jiang Luoxia?" A cold light shot out from the unknown person's eyes. Under his cold light, there was a surge of anger surging, descending from the heavens, cleansing the heavens with 9 mysteries, 1,000 years of work. Even if you don't know where you are still outstanding. Jiang Xiu spoke softly, as if he was taking a leisurely stroll in the courtyard, but also as if he was the ruler of the world, pointing at the mountains and rivers. His eyes were sharp, and his words were unrestrained, full of indescribable elegance. "Jiang Luoxia is the real deal." Jiang Xiu said lightly, "Your friend Wang Jianji is really sloppy and ordinary. He stayed in the water for many years and thought that he was brilliant, but in fact, his evolution is neither fish nor fowl, like a monster. I can take his life with a raise of my hand." At that time, Jiang Xiu's strength was less than 1/10 of his current strength, and Wang Jianji was defeated. Now that he was fighting with Jiang Xiu, he didn't need to use the watermelon-stacked light-flying 1,000 swords. He could kill him with a finger. The unknown person said, "Wang Jianji is my benefactor." Jiang Xiu said, "You want to avenge him, so of course I will give you this opportunity." At this time, Shen Duan accepted the reality. On the surface, Jiang Xiu was a student of Capital University like him, but his background was so complicated. Killing for revenge was like eating a meal in their eyes. He is actually Mr. Jiang. Some people in the garrison also knew Jiang Luoxia's name. After all, Jiang Luoxia's conquest of the Wang family was also shocking, but they didn't expect this person to be right in front of them. Jiang Xiu's expression was indifferent, but his eyes gradually became sharp. His hair flew up, his pupils were like flowing water, and his eyes became pitch black. Seeing Jiang Xiu like this, the surprise on the unknown person's face became even stronger. What a pure demigod evolution! To be honest, Nameless had never seen such a pure evolution. Other than the change in the eyes, there were no other changes. However, such a pure evolution that did not seem like an evolution gave him a terrifying feeling. Good, interesting. Then today, I will bury you here. Boom. The unknown man stomped his foot, and the ground cracked open with him as the center. His entire body emitted a soft white light that was much fiercer than before, and the air around him seemed to have solidified. The surface of his body was like a sparkling and translucent crystal, but it looked very gentle. God evolution, second form. At this moment, Nameless looked like a god with his skin wrapped in crystal. His entire body exuded a terrifying power. Every move he made seemed to be able to intimidate the entire world. Whoosh! He suddenly charged toward Jiang Xiu, crystal light flowing all over his body. It was very beautiful. Wherever he passed, the void seemed to be pierced by his aura, and sizzling sounds could be heard. Although it was beautiful, its destructive power was extremely shocking. Tianmen's secret technique. Void inquiry. Jiang Xiu nodded slightly and said, "It looks a bit like an immortal martial art. Unfortunately, it is neither fish nor fowl. Then I will let you see what a true immortal martial art is." Remnant red smears the cold night. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire world changed. Everyone felt as if they were in the middle of the night. That strange red light flashed by, and the night was incomparably cold. Extreme yin gathered, but that red light was extreme yang. The power of that red light instantly exploded. Whoosh bang! The red light flashed very quickly, like a white steed flashing by a crack. Tangible power is limited. No matter how talented you are, and how you have a crystal-like body, as long as it is material, there will always be a limit to energy. Being intangible is different. Being intangible is infinite, and there are countless possibilities. There were many people present who knew martial arts. When they saw Nameless make a move, they were already shocked. However, at this moment, when they saw Jiang Xiu make a move, they were truly shocked. He actually caused the world to change, and night to be reversed. This was completely beyond the scope of martial arts. Was this Jiang Luoxia's strength? Just now, they were angrily scolding Jiang Xiu for not knowing respect, Jiang Xiu for not knowing what was good for him, and Jiang Xiu for not understanding the principle of letting the leader go first. At this moment, they all had to swallow their words. Wu Guiyong, Yang Chu, and the female military doctor were all stunned. Bang! It was like the sound of glass shattering. A young man who was not even 20 years old was facing the overseas hero who had been famous for decades, and who had once suppressed the entire Hua nation. He was actually superior. How is this possible? However, in their eyes, the crystal-like body surface reflected by the red light was so real. It was so beautiful, like a crystal shattering under the light. Nameless' expression changed drastically. The surface of the crystal that had appeared after his body had evolved had actually been pierced through by a strange ray of light. That was a defense that could easily block the attack of a demigod. Moreover, it was not a physical body but an intangible substance. It could be seen, but could not be touched. How could it be shattered? I told you. You don't know what immortal martial arts are. Ignorant. Nameless snorted and shook his head. This is not martial arts. This is magic. It's definitely magic. As he spoke, his body flashed like a ghost, sometimes to the left and sometimes to the right. Jiang Xiu said, "Yo, you've awakened the 3 Nimbus 6 charms and 18 escape." Before Jiang Xiu finished speaking, he had already appeared behind Jiang Xiu and punched him in the back. This punch was extremely fierce, like the roar of a cannon. It tore through the air, with a bright crystal light, and gathered all his strength on this punch. Ignorant, stupid. That's not how you use the 3 Nimbus 6 charms and 18 escape. Jiang Xiu slowly turned around. His movements were very slow, but the whole time seemed to be infinitely elongated, waiting for him to turn around as long as a century. He clapped his hand and hit the void. At this moment, it was as if time and space were flowing in reverse. All the power was gathered at this moment. It was as if the endless space and matter, including the entire universe, were suddenly gathered at this hammering. It was so powerful that no one could stop it. Not good. Nameless had a very bad premonition in his heart. He wanted to stop, but the hammer had already landed. Under the dumbfounded gazes of the crowd. Boom. It was as if a meteorite had landed on Earth from outer space. His fist was slapped to the ground by Jiang Xiu, and the entire ground exploded. The ground caved in, and cracks spread out in all directions. The buildings dozens of meters away were instantly split in half, as if they had encountered an earthquake. The nearby buildings collapsed with a rumbling sound. What the hell is this? Nameless screamed in his heart. It was like martial arts but not martial arts. It was like magic but not magic. He did not dare to compete at all. There was only one thought in his mind now. Run. With a stomp of his feet, he and the others shot out like a rocket. After more than 30 years of hard work, this is Cloud Flash. I thought it would never be used in my life. I didn't expect it to be used. But when he looked up, Nameless screamed in his heart. Impossible. Jiang Xiu was in front of him in the sky. He had really seen a ghost. He was so fast. What was even more frightening was that Jiang Xiu's hand blade was already descending from the sky. The blade chi was so close that the unknown man's eyes hurt so much that they almost popped out of their sockets. His eyes were bloodshot, and from his forehead to his chin, there was a line of blood flowing out. What exactly are you using? Jiang Xiu said. Immortal martial arts. Using martial arts to support martial arts. But my technique is an immortal technique. It's the law of heaven and earth. If it succeeds in the law of heaven and earth, it can destroy heaven and earth. Immortal martial arts? Nameless slowly fell from the sky. His clothes fluttered in the wind like a falling leaf. Finally, he fell to the ground and was buried in the soil, turning into sand. Just now, Jiang Xiu's hand blade had faintly condensed into a blade aura. It contained blade intent and completely killed him. A generation of Elysium powerhouses had fallen. He was stunning when he came, but sad when he left. Jiang Xiu floated to the ground and stood beside him. Another half of the deities had fallen in his hands. Everyone looked at him in dead silence. No one dared to speak. Jiang Xiu's attack was short, but it completely overturned everyone's understanding. His attack could shock heaven and earth, and the sun and moon lost their light. That divine ability that was like an immortal technique deeply shocked their hearts. This was no longer the power of a human. What made them even more frightened was that the one who was killed was a demigod. Do you admit defeat? Bai Chongyi was dumbfounded. Mr. Jiang is mighty. Chapter 178. Jiang Xiu's eyes were proud and arrogant. He looked at Bai Chong coldly and said, "Surrender or die." Bai Chong hurriedly said, "I'm willing to surrender." After Meng Hao was poisoned, the Meng soldiers respected Bai Chong as their leader. Previously, they had surrendered to Elysium and were killed by Jiang Xiu. Naturally, they did not dare to disobey and shouted in unison, "We're willing to surrender to Mr. Jiang. Mr. Jiang is the best. Mr. Jiang is the best." Zhou Hao's face was pale. He came here to cooperate with Mr. Jiang to take the army into Elysium. He did not expect that Mr. Jiang would be killed by Jiang Luoxia, who appeared out of nowhere. Elysium's efforts were in vain. "Mr. Jiang, you're really ruthless. Do you know that Mr. Jiang is an elder of Elysium? If you dare to kill him, you're going against the entire Elysium. Now you dare to take in the army that Elysium wants. Can you afford to bear the consequences?" Jiang Xiu said. "You've offended me, Jiang Luoxia. Can you bear the consequences?" His tone was cold and murderous. As soon as he said that, the temperature in the surroundings dropped a few degrees. Zhou Hao said, "Mr. Jiang, let me give you a piece of advice. You and Mr. Jiang have a personal grudge, so Elysium will not pursue you. However, Elysium wants the Meng army. You'd better not try to take them in. This will only bring about a fatal disaster for me." Jiang Xiu said. "What if I want to take them in?" Zhou Hao's face darkened. "Elysium is powerful. It's not something you can imagine. If you want to take them in, you'll become an enemy of Elysium. I believe that Mr. Jiang is a smart man. You should think about it carefully." Jiang Xiu's lips curled into a sneer. Bai Chong chimed in. "Mr. Jiang, some unknown person killed our General Meng. By killing him, you've avenged General Meng. Our brothers are very willing to follow you, but Elysium is really too scary. Although Mr. Jiang is a demigod and has amazing supernatural powers, it's still very difficult for him to fight against Elysium. It was not a big deal to be anyone's subordinate. It was not worthwhile for him to take the risk of angering Jiang Xiu by saying this. It could be seen that he was sincere. A smile appeared on Zhou Hao's face. He didn't dare to be too arrogant in front of a demigod like Jiang Xiu, but the smugness at the corner of his mouth was obvious. Jiang Xiu said, "Oh really?" As he spoke, he approached Zhou Hao step by step. The indifferent killing intent in his eyes caused the smile on Zhou Hao's face to gradually fade. "Mr. Jiang, don't." Bai Chengyi yelled. "You dare?" Zhou Hao's eyes suddenly widened. What awaited him was a merciless palm. Zhou Hao was not an ordinary person. He formed a seal with both hands. With a strange power, it was as if a Buddhist golden light had exploded in his hands. It was extremely solemn and powerful. His seal could shake a demigod. This was also the reason why he said that no one could be a match for Lord Meng after Lord Mengdu, the demigod. Even an armored vehicle would be dented by his attack from a distance. However, Jiang Xiu only lightly patted his head with his palm. Bang! There was a deafening roar. Zhou Hao's head was forcefully smashed into the ground with a force as heavy as 10,000 catties. Even his body was forcefully smashed into the ground, creating a deep crater. His figure was nowhere to be seen. Only a deep crater was left. Everyone present sucked in a breath of cold air. They were stunned. There was dead silence. Zhou Hao was close to becoming a demigod. Not only was he slapped to death, but he was also slapped into the ground. How powerful and domineering was that? That intimidating pressure caused everyone present to be unable to breathe. The one who was killed was the spokesperson of the Elysium. He had killed an unknown member of the Elysium, and then killed the spokesperson of the Elysium. Was he trying to make an enemy out of the Elysium? Jiang Xiu said coldly. Those who don't submit will die. Seeing how fierce he was, the soldiers present were stunned. They felt their throats dry up. They could not even shout out words like Mr. Jiang was mighty. Bai Chengyi smiled bitterly. It seemed that he had no choice but to follow his master. The captives by the side of the field looked at the young man in the field. Just a moment ago, they were mocking him. Well, now he had killed all the members of the Elysium and recruited this army. Their lives were now in his hands. General Jiang, what should we do with these Hua captives? Bai Chengyi asked. He had heard that Jiang Xiu was a consultant in the Hua Nation army. The group of captives looked at Jiang Xiu pleadingly. Let him go. Everyone present heaved a sigh of relief. Phew. Wu Guiyong laughed in his heart. He had been frightened just now. Jiang Xiu was a Hua national, and he was also a senior advisor in the military. His incorporation of this unit was equivalent to stabilizing the country's borders and alleviating the scourge that had been plaguing the borders for more than 20 years. This was a great contribution. The people at the borders of the western region would be blessed. Send someone to send these captives back. Also, the two girls who left earlier might not have returned to the base yet. Send them back if you see them on the way. Yes, sir. Bai Chengyi called for a few cars to send them back. Jiang Xiu stayed in the army for a day and met a few important figures in this army. Deputy General Bai, you'll be in charge of this army from now on. You'll be responsible for clearing out the bandits in the desert and strolling around the borders of Persia, North Korea, and Japan. Well, it seemed that Mr. Jiang was planning to leave and hand over the entire army to him. Yes, sir. Jiang Xiu asked. Where do you get the funds? Bai Chengyi said. The neighboring countries will spend money to buy peace. Some traveling merchants will also pay some fees. Other than that, they will become mercenaries and join the war in West Asia. The main source of income is still General Meng. He should have another source of income, but I don't know the details. It would cost a lot to raise an army like this. Bai Chengyi said. However, I heard that there's underground oil not far from our base. The people from Elysium have their eyes on us because of this. General Meng has also thought of developing it, but we don't have the technology. Jiang Xiu said. If you don't have the technology, you can buy it from someone else. Bai Chengyi shook his head and said. But we don't have the money. The amount of money needed to develop underground oil is shocking. Who would lend money to an army like ours that hasn't been recognized by the international community? Jiang Xiu said. Money is a small matter. You don't have to worry about it. Lead the army well. A proper army should act like one. This army was very disciplined under Bai Chongyi's management. Otherwise, the uneducated Meng Du would not have been able to train such a troublesome army at the borders of the Hua nation. They were a bunch of bandits. Yes, sir. Jiang Xiu said. Give me the location of the underground oil and the relevant information. Meng Du had been preparing for more than 10 years. The information was relatively complete. The main problem was that he did not have the money or the technology, so he could not harvest it. Jiang Xiu had the money. As for the technology, he could buy it with money. However, it was best to have an official approval for an oil project. It would be best if the Hua nation's military could step in. That day, Jiang Xiu met with a few leaders. After setting the rules, he asked someone to drive him back to the border town. Brother Jiang. When Jiang Xiu returned to the health station, Xieting was waiting for him at the entrance. She guessed that if Jiang Xiu came back, he would definitely come here. Qiu Yinru stood at the entrance. In the end, she did not come out to welcome him. The female military doctor in charge of the health station ran over and saluted Jiang Xiu. She said, Mr. Jiang, you're back. Your teacher and classmates have been given saline. The situation is considered a problem. It shouldn't be a big problem. After this incident, the female military doctor did not dare to be presumptuous in front of Jiang Xiu. Good. Xieting smiled faintly. They told me that Brother Jiang was very impressive. If I knew you were so powerful, I wouldn't have had to run away first and have a bad reputation for being unrighteous. Haha. Jiang Xiu said in an infuriating manner. It's not that I'm powerful. It's that they're too weak. The female military doctor looked as if she had nothing to live for. Mr. Jiang, the chief asked us to arrange a room for Mr. Jiang and your classmates. It's in a guest house not far from here. If Mr. Jiang is tired, you can rest there first, the female military doctor said politely. After the saline, it will take some time for them to wake up. Okay. Chapter 179. This trip to the desert had been really torturous. As far as Jiang Xiu was concerned, he had gained a lot. He had found the longevity stone talisman, which was the purpose of his trip. One hot and one cold. It would definitely greatly increase his cultivation speed. In addition, he had also incorporated a regular army. This was really a pleasant surprise. Even if Jiang Xiu's cultivation was high and he had a lot of wealth, he was still rootless and lacked real power. However, with this armed force, it would be different. He would become a real big shot. It was no joke to have an armed team. This was self-evident. That night, Wu Guiyong came to the guest house where Jiang Xiu was staying to look for Jiang Xiu, setting up a banquet. Wu Guiyong's office building command center had been bombed, but he didn't even have time to repair it. He came to meet Jiang Xiu first, which showed how much he valued him. This was definitely not because of Jiang Xiu's cultivation, or because Jiang Xiu had saved his life. It was because of the armed force in his hands. The banquet was cold and cheerless. Although there weren't many people, the standard was high enough. It could be said to be the most luxurious in the border area. Wu Guiyong and an eloquent female officer accompanied him. There were only 3 people. Wu Guiyong raised his wine glass. Mr. Jiang, thank you for your help today. Otherwise, all of us would have died there. Jiang Xiu said lightly. It was just convenient. If it wasn't convenient, it was unlikely that he would have helped. No matter what, Mr. Jiang saved my life and the lives of so many of my subordinates. This toast is to you. The female officer filled Jiang Xiu's glass with wine and smiled sweetly, trying to use her beauty to melt Jiang Xiu's cold expression. However, she failed in the end. Jiang Xiu's wine glass didn't move. Wu Guiyong drank it all obediently. This was the first time Wu Guiyong toasted a young man who wasn't even 20 years old. He was ignored, but he didn't look unhappy at all. Jiang Xiu said, Elder Wu, there's no need to say such things. Just say what you want to say. Wu Guiyong laughed out loud. His toast was not completely fake. Jiang Xiu had indeed saved him, But what was more important was what happened next. He said, "I've already reported this matter to the General Military Region. The leaders value Mr. Jiang very much. Is Mr. Jiang really going to accept that armed force?" Jiang Xiu said, "Of course." Wu Guiyong said, "Mr. Jiang plans to keep this force for a long time?" Jiang Xiu said, "Do you want me to give up and let them do whatever they want in the desert? Or do you want them to be taken in by the Elysium, constantly disturb our borders, and blow up your office building again?" Wu Guiyong said, "Of course not. That's not what I meant. It's just that there has never been a registered person who has such a huge private army." Jiang Xiu said, "There are always exceptions. In fact, in order to stabilize the borders, the past dynasties had been racking their brains. Things like the emperor marrying off his daughter and paying all kinds of fees, regardless of age. If the armed force fell into Jiang Xiu's hands, the borders would be peaceful. Wasn't this what everyone wanted to see?" Wu Guiyong said, "Yes, there are always exceptions. If the borders can be stabilized, Mr. Jiang's contributions will last for 1,000 years. Jiang Xiu said, "I'll ask Bai Cheng to sweep the surrounding areas whenever he's free." Wu Guiyong's eyes lit up. That's great." Jiang Xiu said, "You'd better put a gag order on the matter of these bandits being taken in by me. I'm Chinese, and I'm also a consultant. If this gets out, there will be a lot of trouble." Wu Guiyong nodded solemnly. He turned his head and whispered to the female officer beside him for a while. The female officer signaled to Jiang Xiu, stood up, and hurried away. It seemed that she was going to report to the headquarters and put a gag order. Wu Guiyong said, "This will be listed as the country's top secret. Including your classmate just now, and the little girl from the Xie family in Pinghai. They'll all receive a gag order." Jiang Xiu said, "The military is all professionals. Naturally, they won't leak it. Xie Ting won't say anything, but it'll be difficult for my classmates." "That's scary." Wu Guiyong couldn't help but smile when he saw that Jiang Xiu's words were interesting. This Mr. Jiang didn't seem to have a good relationship with his classmates. "Come, Mr. Jiang, let me give you another toast." A female secretary came in from outside and shouted, "Report. Come in." The secretary held a document and handed it to Wu Guiyong. She said, "Dio Yutai number 1 sent a congratulatory message. He greatly praised our operation this time and highly praised Mr. Jiang. He hopes that Mr. Jiang will return to the capital to meet him." Wu Gui said excitedly, "Mr. Jiang, congratulations. The big boss has already approved of your existence. He also wants to meet you. This is the treatment of a national guest." This was within Jiang Xiu's expectations. Wu Guiyong said, "Mr. Jiang, will you stay here for the time being?" Jiang Xiu shook his head. "I'll leave tomorrow." "You don't care about that side?" Jiang Xiu said, "I'll leave it to Bai Chengyi." His ambition didn't lie there. He didn't care if the bandits were loyal to him or not. If they didn't obey him, he would kill them. Of course, those people wouldn't dare to betray him unless he was killed. As for the Elysium, he didn't care about it. Wu Guiyong said, "You're just going to stay in the desert like this?" Jiang Xiu shook his head. "I have a project that I need to discuss with the military. I might need Old Wu's cooperation in the future. However, everything will have to wait until I meet with the big boss before making a decision." The country also had the technology to extract oil. However, whether or not they wanted to avoid suspicion would depend on the big boss. The next day, Professor Su slowly woke up around 10 o'clock in the afternoon. His life was saved. "Professor, you're finally awake." Professor Su struggled to sit up. He was still in good spirits. He said, "How long have I been unconscious?" "Not long. About 20 hours. Professor Su breathed a sigh of relief. However, his face immediately turned gloomy. In the ward there were only 6 students left, including Jiang Xiu and Qiu Yinru. Including the 3 adults, there were 9 people in total. A total of 18 people had died. He didn't know how to explain this to the school or to his parents. Jiang Xiu said, "Professor Su, if you're awake, the military can arrange a plane to take us back to the capital." "The military can arrange a plane?" Professor Su was surprised. Do we have the right to take the military's private plane? Qiu Yinru and Shen Duan both looked at Jiang Xiao. Of course, this was because of Jiang Xiao. Last night, a police officer had already come to talk to them. It was super confidential. If they revealed it, they would be sentenced to death for treason. Qiu Yinru and Shen Duan almost fainted at that time. Of course, Jiang Xiao said. It's mainly because your body can't take it. Professor Su said. I'm fine. It's good to go back early. Staying here will only make me uncomfortable. What was even more tragic was that this trip to the ancient desert city didn't yield any valuable cultural relics. After the flight was set, Professor Su and the other two were carried onto the plane on stretchers. After the plane was equipped with medical personnel, it set off for the capital. Xie Ting said goodbye to Jiang Xiao at the airport. Big brother Jiang, take care. After the plane took off, Qiu Yinru said, she's very good to you. She keeps calling you Big Brother Jiang. As a girl, I think she might like you. Jiang Xiao said, your intuition is wrong. Qiu Yinru said, you can consider it. She's so pretty and her family background seems to be good. Jiang Xiao thought to himself, 3 fiancés and a wife from his previous life. It's already hard enough. How can I have the time? Moreover, Xie Ting gave him a very strange feeling. It was as if she was a different person after coming up from the bottom of the sea. That day, the plane arrived at the capital in the evening. Jiang Xiao immediately went to see the big boss. Because it was a confidential matter, very few people knew about it. They discussed the border issue. In addition, Jiang Xiao raised the issue of oil exploration. That area didn't belong to the country, so of course it belonged to Jiang Xiao. The country could support some technology, but in order to avoid suspicion, Jiang Xiao still had to go to Europe and America to buy the corresponding equipment and technology. These things couldn't be bought with money. They needed a middleman. This aspect could be provided. That day, Jiang Xiao slept on Diaoyu Terrace. He was completely treated like a national guest. The next day, he officially returned to Capital University. He returned to his campus life. Jiang Xiao, you're finally back. There's a girl looking for you. His 3 roommates in the dormitory saw him come back and swarmed over. Jiang Xiao, who's that girl? Jiang Xiao was puzzled. How would I know? Did she say her name? Chapter 180. Zheng Luan had a meaningful look on his face. Zhou Jin and Zhang Yiwei were very gossipy as they pestered Jiang Xiao. Jiang Xiao asked, which girl is pretty? Pretty. Zhou Jin and Zhang Yiwei said at the same time. These 2 animals' eyes were shining. Jiang Xiao thought to himself, could it be Qingling Ran? He had been gone for so long, and because his phone had run out of battery, she might not have been able to contact him. She might have come to the dormitory to find him. She didn't say what her name was? Zhou Jin and Zhang Yiwei shook their heads like a rattledrum. They were very regretful and even had a pained expression. They felt that they had missed out on an unprecedented love. Ha ha ha. Zheng Luan couldn't help but laugh. Everyone looked at him in surprise. Zheng Luan then held back his laughter and came over to put an arm around Jiang Xiao's shoulder. You little brat, you're really something. Do you know who it is? Yi Rong. That girl didn't say anything that day. Later on, she would ask my wife about you from time to time. In the end, she actually took the initiative to look for you. You little brat, you're having a good time. A girl took the initiative to come to you. Yi Rong? Jiang Xiao didn't immediately remember. He was stunned for a moment before he reacted. Oh, that girl at the nightclub that night. She came to look for me? It seems like I don't meet her requirements. Zheng Luan said. It's hard to say for girls. My brother is so handsome. There's no reason for her not to take the bait. Why don't you give her a call and ask her out tonight? Jiang Xiao shook his head and said, I'm so tired. Let's talk about it later. After he finished speaking, he threw his luggage on the bed and fell down. He wasn't that tired. He just didn't want to go. Of course, if he wanted to meet, it would be to look for Qingling Ran, his wife from his previous life. What a beast. A beautiful girl took the initiative to come to you with such an attitude. Zhou Jin and Zhang Yiwei gritted their teeth. The well-fed didn't know the suffering of the hungry. Be careful not to be struck by lightning. Young Master Luan, so you know her. Introduce her to us. Hey, young Master Luan. Zheng Luan was frightened by the two horny animals and quickly ran away. The news of the desert expedition was not suppressed. After all, so many people had died, and the news had spread throughout the campus. Professor Su was not held responsible, but he was banned from doing archaeological projects. Qian Deshen stayed behind to teach cultural classes, and returned to the United States immediately. The incident was not small. However, there was one thing that caused even bigger waves. The whole Jiang family was in an uproar. The entire Pinghai Jin family was slaughtered. There was no exception. In the capital, in Pinghai, and even eldest young Master Jin Shi, who was lying on the sickbed, no one was left alive. The Jin family was Jiang Yishan's money bag. Without this money bag, their economic capital would sharply decrease. In my opinion, the most important thing right now is to transfer the Jin family's assets out. Second brother is right. Old Master Jiang angrily leaned on his cane and said, "Then what are you waiting for? Hurry up and do it." Before he finished speaking, Jin Hang, who had close contact with the Jin family, ran in and said, "Oh no, the Jin family's Jin group has been attacked in the stock market. More than 40% of the shares have been maliciously acquired. In addition, more than 50% of the shares have been left in the market. In other words, the Jin family's Jin group is already someone else's." As soon as he finished speaking, the Jiang family's courtyard suddenly fell silent. What? Old Master Jiang spat out such a sentence after a long while. The fact that the Jin family was the Jiang family's money bag was almost an open secret. Otherwise, Professor Su would not have known. The Jin family was slaughtered and the Jin group was robbed. The person who did it did not put Jiang Yishan in his eyes. It could even be said that they were targeting the Jiang family. It doesn't make sense. There's no election recently, and there's no conflict of interest with others. At Old Master Jiang's position, it was a very high-level game. A little bit of trouble naturally could not escape his nose. Moreover, this way of doing things was not like a game at all. It was simple and crude, and there was no technical content at all. However, Old Master Jiang had to admit that this was as painful as cutting off one of his fingers. As the saying went, it was better to cut off one finger than to injure 5 fingers. The Jin family was directly abolished, and the Jin family's funds were completely out of the Jiang family's hands. Now that GDP was popular, many children of the Jiang family relied on the Jin family for their business. Then, they used money as a precursor to create political achievements for their children in the official career. This was the usual route. Gu Dikang supported Jiang Xiu's father, Jiang Yi, in the same way. In fact, most of them did this, but everyone's capital was different, and all of them had different speeds of advancement. Now that the big golden egg was gone, the speed of the children in the official career was bound to be greatly slowed down. The most fatal thing was that the children of the Jiang family who were in business might directly lose their capital chain. Therefore, even with Old Master Jiang's status, he would be so angry. Investigate for me, who is so bold?" Jiang Heng said. "I've already investigated. The other party is the Zhongtian group, and the boss behind it is Jiangnan's Wang family. They are a warlord family that has passed down martial arts for 200 years in Jiangnan." The second son of the Jiang family on the side asked, "The Wang family, a mere martial arts family, dares to touch the Jin family, and dare to go against our Jiang family?" Jiang Heng said, "Second uncle, you don't know, but the Wang family encountered an accident before. One of their ancestors who was suspected to be a demigod was killed, and then the Wang family was massacred. They had no choice but to bow down to this person. Now, the Wang family is actually under this person's control." "Oh, who is he?" Jiang Heng said. "Jiangnan people respectfully call this person Mr. Jiang. His name is Jiang Luoxia." In other words, the Jin family's massacre and the Jin group's malicious acquisition were all done by this person? Jiang Heng nodded. If it's because of the martial arts world, the Jin family is also a martial arts family. It's possible that it's just a personal grudge. It's unlikely that it's directed at our Jiang family. Old Master Jiang snorted coldly. A beautiful woman on the side said, "He's too cruel. He actually slaughtered an entire family. These martial arts cultivators are too lawless. Furthermore, it's such an influential family. Isn't he afraid of being punished?" At Jiang Luoxia's level, especially when it came to a family like the Jin family, he would definitely do things neatly. He would definitely not let others have any evidence against him. Let someone come forward to negotiate with him. Spit out the Jin family in the same way that they ate it. Old Master Zhang's face was gloomy. "Little Hang, I'll leave this matter to you. Do it well and don't embarrass the Jiang family. If you need any support, just tell your father and second uncle." Jiang Heng said. "Yes, Grandpa." The two middle-aged men on the side looked at Jiang Heng encouragingly. He was one of the more outstanding members of the third generation of the Jiang family. Except for the two who were ahead of him in their official careers, he was considered the most outstanding and the most talented in business. After those people left, Old Master Zhang's mood had calmed down. The Jin family was very important, but it was just a vassal. If one was gone, he could find another one. "How's the situation on that kid's side?" Secretary Yi said. He just returned to the capital with the archaeological team. "It seems that something big happened on this trip. More than half of the people died. Even the military region intervened. They were sent back by a special plane from the garrison at the border." His father is useless, and so is he. He's even worse than his father when it comes to archaeology. Old Master Zhang's face was livid. "Deal with him as soon as possible. If something happens to the Jin family, the Nangong family may be even more at odds with us." Secretary Yi touched his head. "Okay, I'll do it as soon as possible." However, he was very helpless in his heart. That kid was as tough as his father. It was not easy to deal with him. "Why? Is there a problem?" Secretary Yi said helplessly. "He's a little like his father." Old Master Jiang said. "This matter is not up to him. Even if he doesn't agree, he has to agree. You have to use the right method to deal with a young man. At his age he is interested in girls. I remember that unfilial thing arranged a marriage for him. He might have feelings for that fiancée in Jiang City. You can start from here." Secretary Ye's eyes lit up, and he praised in his heart. Old Master actually knew this trick. Amazing. "I heard that the girl is very good-looking and has good grades. She also came to the capital and entered China University to study finance." Secretary Yi was a meticulous person. Of course, he had also investigated Lingsu. He said, "I'll get in touch with this girl as soon as possible. People are selfish. There's no reason for her not to agree if I give her generous conditions. Do it as soon as possible. Let that kid settle the matter with the little girl from the Nangong family as soon as possible." That you're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.